What's really good, everybody? This is Nathan Alabach, and welcome to the podcast where we get into people's stories and go down a bunch of rabbit holes about what's really good in the world. Just one quick announcement before we get into this here. I know it's been several episodes since I had on someone who's specifically oriented in like social media advertising or internet culture type stuff, and I know a lot of you tune in specifically for that content. So just know I've mentioned this in a few of the intros recently. I honestly just needed a break from talking about Twitter so much. It's super fun to banter about, and it's a big part of my job, but like anything else, it can get monotonous. So recently I've had on a lot more friends of mine locally, and it's been a blast, and I've gotten a lot from it, and I know a lot of you have been enjoying it as well. So just for those of you who tune in for that specifically, just know I've got a lot of people scheduled for the next month or so who like work with Tumblr and Reddit, and some Twitter joke writers and authors who work in this space. So a lot of cool stuff coming up, and we'll make sure we keep mixing up the content so it's not just people that I'm friends with, or just someone who's like an expert on social media, whatever. So just so you all know, we'll get back to switching it up soon, and that's all. So yeah, now for today's episode, I sat down with a dear friend of mine, William H. Travis, who's, no lie, one of my favorite local songwriters, and he's a teacher and just an all-around great, funny dude. We talked about him growing up in a small town and being raised culturally Catholic, then how he's sort of eventually come back around to faith through meditation and seeing it through like a more modern framework, I guess you'd say, like seeing like the value of storytelling and all that. What else? We spent some time critiquing the end of Game of Thrones, which was always good. And from there, we ended up talking about how depressing politics and the news can be. Then we closed on the different ways people find inspiration for songwriting. We got a bit into his songwriting process specifically, and how he views his role as a songwriter and a teacher, and what's going on with his new music, and probably a bunch of other stuff that I'm forgetting here. But yeah, you can find his music on Bandcamp or Spotify. I'll put some links in the show notes, and yeah, definitely give him a listen. I promise you won't regret it. I even recorded a video session for him on YouTube with one of my favorite songs that he's written called Godspeed. I'll put that in the links too. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the conversation, and please remember to smash that star review button on iTunes if you use it. Whatever star you think I deserve is fine. I just appreciate the feedback, and feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram or wherever with guest suggestions and all that stuff. Anyway, now let's get into what's really good. Travis, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's great to be here.
Hold on, actually. We've been talking for a little bit, but for a few moments before we started recording. I need to clear the air on something, because I thought about this when I was texting you earlier today. I realized we've known each other for maybe 5 years, sort of.
I think more than that.
Has it been longer than
maybe
that?
6 or 7.
6 or 7, okay. And I realized that on Facebook, your name is William Travis.
Oh boy.
And I've heard you referred as other things, and I've always thought, wait, is it William? Is it Travis? And then I realized maybe I don't know you at all, because I don't think I even know your name.
Oh, it's Travis. It's Travis. You are one of many. I get a lot of hey William emails, and I laugh. I love it.
Is there a story behind that, or?
Before this, you asked me what are things we could not talk about, and
should you have said this?
I should have said this, but it's a long, weird story. But I was in a band years ago, one of those bands you form in middle school, and then you guys go to high school, and then you go to college, and you're still in it. And we had certain fans of the band who were they were at the shows before us.
Oh, wow.
It was dedicated. I look back now.
You must have been good.
No. I had nice, long, flowing locks, though. Maybe that was it. And they were there before us. They were there after us. They were good They were fans. They were the fans you want to have.
They were like, as the kids would say now, stands.
Yeah.
They stand you. That's what they call it.
What?
That's the word. It's
stands.
Derived from an Eminem song. It's
stand.
when they stand somebody. It's like I worship you, basically.
Yeah, that's a great song. with Dido singing the. Yeah.
All right, so you have these are your young stands, your pre-stand fans.
Pre-stand fans. Actually, I was a big fan of that song growing up. So it was post-stand.
Oh, okay. So post-stand, but pre-current, like pre-modern stand.
Pre-saying that about, yeah.
Okay.
And it got weird, I'll just say that. With some mental health things I think were involved. Not on that end.
Yeah.
And, oh boy. And so I was getting like messaged a lot on Facebook. And this was like, I was in high school, I was on Facebook, I thought it was cool, I thought it was the future.
Yeah, right.
You could stalk people, and it was, you didn't have to like wait outside their house.
Of course. Stalking is so much easier now.
It's so much easier now, and it's so much less creepy in a great, creepy way. There's now only a trail of data of how many times you've reloaded someone's page.
Right.
Anyway, so it got weird, and so I deactivated my page. Got rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Hobby, my real name, deactivated. He's gone. He doesn't exist anymore. So then a couple years later, like 2 years later, I was in college. I reactivated because I was meeting more people, and I was like,
of course,
let's just keep in touch with people.
What year was this? I'm sure it was getting more popular as well.
This was like 2010.
Okay,
maybe.
Yeah, that's like right when it started blowing up. Smartphones.
It was huge.
Yeah,
and people were very active and posted cool things, and it was still before like, people ranted a lot,
right? Before the political,
yeah. Before that, where it was like, I've been thinking this, and I gotta get it out.
Yep.
And people were posting just like, "Hey, I'm at the mall."
Yeah. It was like when it was set up. It would be like Travis is doing this.
Yep.
Yeah,
and that was cool. It was cool because I was like, "Oh, I get to keep up with interesting things," and you found out a lot about. Ooh, there's a garden in Philadelphia. Wow. I didn't know that, and then I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to see if it's cool. And so I reactivated it, and I started like just deleting friends from the past that I would never even talk to if I saw them in person.
Yeah.
So I was just going through kind of cleaning house, and then within 20 minutes of that, of the deactivation of that person, I get a personal message. Mm-hmm. So I'd been gone for 2 years. Within 20, and they might have been the first one to go. I don't know. I got that message.
Yeah.
And it was like, why would you deactivate me?
Did they think that you blocked them or something? Yeah. Who knows?
And it was, and I'm not going to get into what they had said before.
Of course,
because it's personal.
Private. Yeah,
it's very private for them. And so I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
How did they even know? Like, they've been waiting 2 years for me to come back. And I didn't even, it's not like I posted something that I saw I was back.
Right.
I reopened it. I got rid of them. And then I got that message. Wow. And so I was like, oh, shit. And so then I deleted it completely. And I started from scratch. And William is a name, all my favorite writers growing up were William.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. It's a
Shakespeare.
William Blake, Shakespeare, Wordsworth, like all those people. William, solid name. And so I was like, you know what? It's going to be William Travis, and I'll have like my 10 true friends, and I'll just keep up to date with them on that.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning.
Wow.
Of William Travis.
Was there ever like an official name change or anything? Like, do people refer to you as William? Because like you said, I know you get like random emails and stuff. But
people honestly don't refer to me as anything. Like
they're confused.
People don't say Travis when they see me. They're like, "Hey."
Yeah.
And no one says Travis. Some people say T-Rav.
Okay.
That's like the only nickname I've ever had is T-Rav.
T-Rav.
Or Travie. That was my middle school name for like girls to call me in the hallway.
Yeah. It's weird because I think from the first few times I met you, I don't remember if I called you William or what have you, but I remember being confused until I think I heard someone else call you Travis. And then I was like, all right, now I can like... But then, I remember checking all the social media and stuff being like, what in the...
Yeah. Well,
identity issues.
Yeah, I have them, and so
Don't we all?
But in school, you always call people by their last name. You're like so and so, so and so.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if Travis is the last name, then if people call it,
it works.
It works.
It's like a first
and
name.
I'm like, all right, I'll stick with it.
That's crazy, man. I love how right before we started recording, I was like, "Is there anything you like don't want to talk?" And you're like, "No, man. Like we're getting the first thing." I'm like, you know what? I have to.
Dude.
I've always wanted to bring it up, but like I don't.
You had a sense of like where to push that right away.
I'm what do you call it? Like those like interviewers, there's journalists that are just looking to make the soundbite. I'm like, now I got it. Now I'm gonna make front pages.
Oh man.
So dude, like where, like for people listening, obviously this is, you know, we know each other through songwriting and local music, and we've played shows together and gone to each other's shows and what have you. But outside of that, I mean, like we've never really talked long form. So I mean, I guess I'm as ignorant as the audience of who you are and your background and all that. So like, where did you grow up?
Where did I grow? I grew up in a little town, not Bethlehem, Nazareth. I was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and now I grew up in Nazareth, and
which is pretty close to Bethlehem, right?
It's close. It's close. It's very rural feeling compared to Bethlehem,
right?
And the mindsets of people are just so different in the two towns.
Okay.
I feel like, in a sense, Bethlehem is like New York City, and Nazareth is the center of the country.
Wow. To draw like an interesting parallel. That's crazy.
And I liked it because some of my dearest friends I made through Nazareth, but it also gave you this mindset of it was so quiet and people are different. You know, all people are different, but everything is repressed. Like if you have homosexual feelings in Nazareth, you don't speak them.
Yeah.
And you would be so outed by everyone.
Of course.
It would be front page news. And so you find I grew up feeling like every news thing that came to you, oh, that's someplace else in the world. Like, oh, that's someplace else.
Yeah.
This person getting killed, like that doesn't happen here.
Right.
I'm sure people feel that in all towns everywhere, but I had this
very small town feel.
Very small.
Yeah.
And then I got to college and like this guy burned down the dean's house in Colorado. Like he burned and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's you?"
Yeah.
And you meet all these people and you have all these moments where you're like, "Oh my God, this is you. This is that person I've been hearing about all the time."
Yeah.
But in Nazareth, like everyone was just
feels like so far away. Yeah.
And it was awful. I still am ignorant about so much, but I had no idea about anything.
But did you grow up feeling like it was awful, or did you grow up having like did you grow up associated with the sort of cultural views of that area, or did you kind of grow up like as a contrarian or like a little rebel, like I don't like this, I want to get out of this town? And...
I was so generic, dude.
Okay.
And my parents never taught me anything.
Really?
Like they never had that sit down moment where they sat you down on the bed. And like you're like, am I about to get like spanked? And then they tell you something about like race or about sex or something.
Yeah.
None of those moments.
Yeah.
And so I was a complete blank slate. Like Bob Dylan was my dad.
Wow.
I just listened to his songs and I was like, these are how you should see the world.
Wow.
So
growing up, did you have some type of like cultural religious upbringing, or your family
Catholic?
You were Catholic,
yeah.
But was it more strict, or was it kind of just like cultural, like we go to church once in a while, or?
It was like my mom was like, I was raised Catholic, and you're gonna go get confirmed, and I was that kid in church laying on both parents' laps like at the same time, like twirling my dad's fingers and then like pulling my mom's hair.
Yeah.
Up until I was about 15. Around then, I stopped doing that. I couldn't do it. But
did you bail on like the church, or like what was your feelings on it growing up? Because like obviously like culturally that's what that kind of more rural community leans into, is the more religious and more family, more you know.
Yeah, I don't. As a kid, wow. I guess I never thought about. I just always was like, these guys are old and white. And like maybe once a year during church, they made me laugh with a story. Yeah. That they, one of those stories the priests tell. Mm-hmm. But I don't know.
But nothing like jarring, nothing like visceral to your identity, your soul. It's just kind of a thing that you did.
Yeah, I didn't like it. all I knew is I didn't like it. And I just felt like the people you saw there and their special clothing and their special nice cars, they were like checking off their Cub Scout badge. If I went to church this week, I'm therefore a good person all week. And then you're leaving the parking lot and you're cursing out someone who's pulling out in front of you. And it's like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I know. I do know.
But I'm still a very religious person.
Yeah.
I just don't do the whole go to church, look over your shoulder to see if the Joneses are there, and I don't even know who the Joneses are. I just know that's a phrase.
That's the Joneses.
That's a phrase. And,
everybody knows who the Joneses are.
And so I've just never been a fan of that. So I love that weird dance you have when you meet someone, and you kind of want to know if they're religious, and they kind of want to know if you're religious.
Yes.
But you also don't want to be made fun of for being religious, weirdly. But they also don't want to be made fun of for potentially being religious, as if it's some blemish against you as a human being.
Well, the stigma is unreal. I mean, like, I think for most people, especially today with the internet and just how I guess you could say the rise of secularism in the sense where, like, culturally, in pop culture, like with the internet and with cable TV and everything, like, everything feels much more further away from like traditionalism and religious in the sense of, like, I guess what most primarily conservative Christians would consider like the pre-1960s maybe, or whatever you want to say. And I think there is definitely this today extra stigma added on because of that internet element where people are just like, oh, you still believe that? Or like, or like, what does that mean? Like, if you say you're a Christian, particularly, like, or a Muslim or whatever, like that, or even an atheist, like, it all comes with a certain level of baggage where a stranger is like, oh, so you believe, like you said with the checkbox, it's like they have their own checklist and they're like, oh, you believe A, B, and C, and now you're like branded to them.
I always say this thing, it always comes up in conversation, but it's the one thing that I feel like I truly believe, and I call it the layers of superiority.
I'm going to like this.
And that's ultimately, I know that people have their feelings about, I'm a Christian, I'm victimized by liberals, and I'm liberal, and I'm victimized by this group and that group, and then, but the layers of superiority for me are like, I like to hike. I like to go hiking. And to me, I know friends, they hike at local parks and everything, and I'll be like, oh, you need to go up north where there's like the real hike where there's vertical footage and you're really going up there and the views. And I laugh at myself thinking that, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
But then there's, the next level is like, oh, you go for hikes, I rock climb.
Yeah.
I don't follow a path that's been carved out for me. Like, I climb.
Free climb.
That's the next level. And then it's like, I only ice climb. Where I don't even use anything to help me climb.
And I do it in my shorts.
Yeah. And then it keeps going and going and going to that point where you can like sigh and be like, no one can be better than me.
Yeah.
And so for religion, I feel like you're constantly hearing people who are like, well, they don't know the true way.
Yeah.
Like, I live the true what Jesus wanted or what this person. And so it never even ends with that. And so we talk about like, well, this group's Christian and thinks that this other group's wrong, and this group's wrong. And I'm just like, guys, just shut up. Like, just deal with how you feel a little bit.
Yeah.
And just like be happy you found like an outlet to be something.
And it's so interesting because that does translate into all sects of belief, because I think about it in terms of, like, stereotypically your mind would straight up go, I think for most people, to sort of your conservative fundamentalist Christians who are like, I have the way or whatever, like I have the right interpretation and all that. But like my mind just as easily goes to more progressive Christians who are like, they in most cases feel like they typically came from that fundamentalist background, and now they feel like they've like surpassed it and grown into like enlightenment. So now they feel like it's like, no, they're all like living in the past. Like we have the truth. And then you go to like atheists, and atheists are like, those idiots. And then like progressives are like, no, atheists are the idiots. Like they're critiquing like a straw man. They're critiquing fundamentalists. But meanwhile, then atheists are like, most people are fundamentalists, and these progressives are all like into Deepak Chopra and Oprah, and like they don't have any basis in reality. Like they're just like adjusting to secular culture, and like it just keeps going around like a what do you call it? What's the thing that goes around at the circus?
Vertically, like a carousel.
No, like a carousel. Carousel.
Ferris wheel.
I guess both do go
Ferris,
around.
Karis.
Yeah.
But isn't that what Christianity is in the first place? It's like Jesus was Jewish, so it's like we're gonna make something. This is the new, like this is the real way.
Yeah.
So it's just
Forget the Old Testament.
Yeah, we're still doing the same thing, and I love it. It's great. I love going to churches with white Jesus statues. Like he grew up in Iowa.
In America.
Yeah, he grew up in Iowa. Like that's the new narrative. And then I don't know. I love doing this thing though where I'll pretend I'm not that I'm Jesus, but like I'll do a Jesus voice and just kind of.
You could play a good Jesus.
Yeah,
you got a good beard too.
His dad's like, well, Jesus, why don't you go do something instead of hanging out with those bums? And he's like, shut up, Dad. He's like, you call yourself a carpenter, you don't even help me with this shit. And it's like. You're just off with your hippie bums, and like I see it. I see it all. It was no different than with Jesus. He was just, man, I have these feelings. There aren't emo concerts yet. Like, where do I go?
Jesus was waiting for Fall Out Boy, and just like, oh my God, man. Yeah, he was like, I am those bums.
Yeah,
Dad.
he would hate it. Just coming back and just chilling and just driving. Be like, that sucks, man.
Yeah.
I used to love fish, and now it's full of fucking plastic. It's like, that shit sucks.
Jesus was the first emo kid. He had to get out of this town. Like he.
Yeah, seriously.
He was literally
had to get out.
like,
This town sucks. What do I do here?
What's my role?
He just wanted to go to the city. I mean, we still do that. We want to go to New York City and feel like we got to go there to make it. He just was trying to make it.
Yeah. He was looking. He didn't have social media, but he was still looking for likes. Yeah, he was still looking for followers.
How many people came to the show last night? The disciples like, we didn't do too good.
He's doing like the paper play. The disciples are just like, how many tickets did you sell? My God, man.
That's why there were only a couple. How many disciples? 12.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't like pay them all. He's just like, we got to keep this business small.
Yeah, well, he was a socialist, so that was a big. The worst capitalist ever, Jesus. Like, if he would have ran a business right, no.
I'm gonna get a flat tire on the way home. I know. I'm gonna spin out and die.
Oh man, love it. Yeah, that's a whole other thing too. It's hilarious how culturally there's like capitalist Jesus versus socialist Jesus. You know what I mean? Why is it literally everywhere? Like it's literally inescapable. Like your Jesus warfare. When did it change for you? Like when did you like? So you're saying you were kind of dissatisfied or fed up with it growing up. Did you hit a wall at some point? And
I was one of those kids who you get into music, and then you're kind of like too cool for religion. But I think it was when I went to college. I took my mom's Bible that she had when her grandma gave it to her or her mom, and I took it with me, and I would just read. And because so much of growing up, I felt like I had no experience with practical using what I was being taught or even reading what I was being taught. It was all that traditional. It was in another language.
Yeah, you were being fed something instead of you going to the source or whatever.
I had no idea what. And then when you start reading it, it's just simple things, which it's almost like what I feel like a lot of liberals believe in, which is just like taking care of people and looking out for people and treating people with respect.
Yeah.
But I feel like we could even get in this. The new liberalism is its own now layer of superiority of just, like, well, you don't eat this. Well, I don't eat... And then it's like, well, I lay beneath a tree and let the fruit literally fall into my mouth. No one is forced to pick it for me. And it gets its own badge of superiority. Yeah. I can't even get into that.
Yeah.
But, so, I don't know. I feel like I'm so liberal, I come back around the spectrum. It's a circle, and I've gone around, and now I'm coming back toward it. So, yeah, to me, it was just getting back to the text and the fundamentals of, like... investigating how have I treated people in my life, and how could I try to treat them better, and respect myself and others better. And I thought that it was more like a meditation for me. It was a form where I didn't have to bend myself in a yoga position. Yeah, I could just lay in bed and read something
very like personal thing.
Yeah. And then I would read it before bed, and then read it when I woke up. just to kind of, clear my mind before bed, and then in the morning just kind of have that form of meditation instead of like getting up running for an alarm and just getting into the day, kind of like, all right, today I will approach it in a way where I listen to people deeply and I'm considerate and I'll let this, this person in front of, or what, just
of course,
prep yourself.
Trying to like live it almost.
Yeah.
Did you feel like, so kind of growing up and having it forced upon you in this weird cultural way, and then you kind of growing up wanted to explore it for yourself? Was it more of like a personal thing versus I don't want to say dogmatic because that sounds derogative, but like, like more, were you trying to get on the team almost, you know what I mean? Like, were you trying to like explore the religion to feel like you were part of the culture, like the culture of Christianity in some way, like with your family and friends, or was this more like your own personal like curiosity in some sense, or a little bit of both?
People when they leave the church, they always go back to that church.
Of course.
Because it's a part of when you're a tree or a vine growing up, you grow around the thing that's next to you. Like you go to the old cemeteries and there's a grave being engulfed by a tree or something.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I was like, well, my parents are, their parents before them, their parents before them. And it just kind of, I wanted to, again, I studied English in college, and everything I read, every reference in this world essentially goes back to some tradition or some text or some old thing. And so much of what I was reading, I couldn't even understand.
Right, like you didn't have the framework to conceptualize.
Zero framework, zero. And so I went back to it kind of also with that in mind, and then it just kept going. And I still every morning, every night, and it's my form of meditation and reminding myself, because, dude, there's so much that just gets you down and gets you negative and bends you in a way of being like, oh, no, I'm a mean person now.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, just chill.
That's so fascinating, because like I've heard this. I forget, I was reading somewhere recently, and someone said that exact same thing, where it's almost even to the degree where I guess you could say like atheists or like more secular people want to critique religion as a whole and say like we should like throw out the dogma. There's some element of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, where so much of like specifically culture in America and in most of Europe, it's like there's so much of the culture of the past like 1,000, 2,000 years is built upon those foundations.
Seriously.
With like with especially as an English major, like so much of the writing, the philosophy, like it's built up. It's like layers of building upon layers. So if you try to jump in to say like, I don't know, like Descartes as a philosopher, or even like Shakespeare, like you kind of jump into these different levels of philosophy or theology or just literature, and you realize like they're building on certain archetypes that they got from certain texts and scriptures, and it's like it is bizarre to think that. Like, because when I think about like how I want to like raise my kids, like if and when I have kids in the future, it's like I grew up pretty strictly religious, and like I don't necessarily want them to have that upbringing, but at the same time, I do want them to have some sort of contextual framework for understanding like the culture around them, because it is. And I tell people all the time, like I have a lot of like religious symbolism in my own songwriting and like metaphors and all that, and I talk about it personally. And I've had some people, including my wife at times, be like why, like years later, like why are you still into this? And like I always come back like to your point of saying you kind of come back around, like David Bazan's like the best example, like Pedro the Lion, because he's, I guess you'd say like an agnostic at this point, or atheist, and he is like what, it's like 40s or something like that, and it's been like 20 years since he denounced Christianity, but he still writes like from that very personal place. It's still like part of his identity, and like when asked about it in interviews, he's always like, I can't escape it. Like it's in, no matter how many times I denounce it, like if I spend my time critiquing it and denouncing it, it's still consuming my nature. It's still consuming my rhetoric and my actions. So like just like I like how you said, like life itself kind of makes you, it wears you down, and you can become an asshole very easily. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's nice to be aware of how these things can affect you, because if you are out there just like tearing it all down every day, that obviously has an effect on your mental health,
like and your body. Destroy.
Yeah.
But, to me, I just want something that I read, and I'm like, even if it's so idealistic and so ridiculous, I just want to read it, and then I'm like, I have hope for myself.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that I can continue to make decisions that 80% of people will think are okay and good, because nothing. At some point, you just have to just stop existing if you don't want to offend or hurt someone. Yeah, and that's a dark path to go down. Just living to not upset someone, and so.
Yeah, because there's always those areas, especially depending on the culture you live in, where you have to offend or you have to kind of upheave societal norms. Like if you were growing up in some oppressive regime where it's 80% of people or whatever the percentage might be do believe certain dangerous ideas, and that's the norm. In that situation, you might have to be the person who's this isn't okay.
Yeah.
But it is weird living in America where for most people there's still crime, gangs, violence, rape, what have you, name your thing, poverty. But there's this sort of general sense across the country where it's we're okay. So then that kind of puts this weird guise, where it's you can just kind of get away with just being in the comfortable majority doing whatever, and it doesn't really you can just live life feeling you're not really affecting anything and just think whatever you want and
and like you said about if you were raising a kid, I mean, just having that contextual background of religion. I mean, you can go into it just like you can go into guns or any of that stuff where. Or tobacco, or all these things where once they're being wielded by people who want something, who want money from it, or want to bend it to their own thing. I think early on, one thing that put me off of religion was just seeing it as the Crusades, evil, all these things, evil, hurting people, using it to just push Native Americans away, which is,
colonialism. Yeah.
And so there's all that, the divine inspiration. Oh, it's just, it can be used to hurt people so fast,
of course,
that it just was F this. I can't even be a part of this.
Yeah.
And then when you come back around, it's sort of, well, what are the parts of it that are good? I don't think that when these ideas were founded, Jesus was we're going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to be great. I just can't believe that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, and it's interesting how it kind of compounds generationally. I was talking recently to somebody about how my parents, the cultural lens or framework that they had growing up, in this area remotely, they grew up in this area is more very Mennonite. It's very traditional, old school, Pennsylvania Dutch, German roots, and so they grew up around that. And my dad didn't grow up religious. My mom did, and then my dad found religion, that type of thing. And then they got married, and in their young adult years, they kind of broke out of the more traditional, I guess, sects of religion that were around here to start their own thing. So in their time, at that time, what they were doing, they were breaking away from a traditional structure and then planting a church to it was a non-denominational thing. They were trying to explore new ideas and all that. Yeah, and it's just interesting because my upbringing then, as I grew up with that system, my understanding of their framework was that it was more fundamentalist, because the way I looked at, you know what I mean? It's like how I looked at it, it's they were taking things literally. They were going to certain extremes with I don't want to get into the rhetoric. I mean, I could go off about it, but needless to say, I felt oh wow, this is a very fundamentalist, extreme, conservative take on religion. And then as I grew up, I'm oh wait a minute, it's all so relative per the generation. There's ebbs and flows throughout history where you're kind of slowly moving the ball forward, and then as you move the ball forward, there's always going to be certain parts. There's always going to be people in power that just destroy and use it for evil and all that, and then there's always other people that are trying to progress and move past those old ways, and those things are constantly in tension with each other, trying to I don't even know, you can't really, it's not a uniform thing. It's very amorphous, but it's just interesting how we each kind of come to the table from these different perspectives, and then as we grow up, we kind of develop our own worldview, and then I'm sure by the time the next generation comes along, they'll rip it apart.
Oh, they'll take it apart. Those people are stupid.
Yeah, of course. It's just the natural flow. You can't escape it.
Just now, it's a little icky because of the history of violence, and therefore the people who need their Christianity to be their Girl Scout, Boy Scout badge, to show they check that box off, look at me. They feel victimized, by the icky nature of the history of it, and therefore they're being attacked. Their religions, their ideals are being attacked, and it's just no, that's not. It's just that you need to acknowledge the the bad
Right.
of the past.
Yeah, and that's like the information age thing. It's like the first time in history right now where like I don't want it's not a whole all encompassing thing to say. Obviously, not everybody has the same access to information. There's like levels of privilege and all that, and class structures and whatever. But most people have access to know at least the harm done in the past, and then they can form their own opinions, and anyone can start a Twitter account or whatever if you have a phone to like be like this sucks. Whereas in the past you had no outlet for that. Like you couldn't if you were just some Joe Schmo, like you didn't unless you had like a radio station or you were on a television network or you were a writer for a newspaper or whatever. Like you just went with the flow and you believe what your neighbor believed and whatever. But now, like all the world's critics can kind of like hyper focus on these areas, and then it just freaks the hell out of religious people because they're like, "Why are you saying it's all bad?" And it's like, well, they have a voice for the first time. Now you got to deal with it. Like you have to address
world sucks now. Back 50 years ago, that was the good old days.
Back when no one could have any dissenting opinions on anything.
Things were simpler, and they might have been simpler, but you still had people getting stolen away and like kept in the basement.
Exactly.
Where they were a sexual slave, and that was awful.
Yeah.
And that still happens, but people know that that's a thing more now.
Right.
So we lock our doors and
Yeah. So like in the
Jesus.
No, it's true. It's true. And yeah, it is. It's good to. I always feel weird when I'm podcasting, or just I guess talking in general, but especially podcasting because I've listened to enough podcasts and watched enough interviews and YouTube videos to see how many people are like stripped from context, and you know what I mean. People make entire YouTube careers and like media careers now just off critiquing other people's media careers. You know what I mean? Like they'll take a 15-minute interview, hyper focus on 5 minutes of something they said, and be like, "This is why they were wrong in this statement." And then it does this weird thing to my brain because I listen to so much of that, and then as I talk, I have to think of all these like caveats and try to like, I'm like, oh, am I overgeneralizing this statement? Like, oh, am I being too hyperbolic here? And then it almost ruins everything you want to say because you can't be poignant. Like, yeah, like I'm trying to make a point, but then I'm also dancing around the point, trying not to offend or like be taken out of context by everybody.
That's what songwriting has become for me too.
Really?
Where it's just like, I'll start one and I'll be like, this is nice. And then I start to be like, well, this is why this has been done before. This is why you can't really say that. And pretty soon I'm like, I put the guitar down and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna. But have you ever thought about being like a streamer, like a live,
like a Twitch streamer,
like a Twitch video game streamer, something like that, or something like that?
I've thought about it. Yeah, maybe in the future. I joke with my wife Chelsea about this because our apartment's so small and we can't really like. There's no room to do anything. Like if we were podcasting in our living room and she's in the bedroom, like she's hearing every word. Like she'd be like, "What the fuck? Like, get them out of here now." So maybe if I have a house, like when I have a house, I'll have like my own little studio room, and I could do that and rant about whatever.
I've always had dreams of doing like a video game Twitch stream where I'm not very good at video games. I'm like below the 50 percentile, but I would love to do that, but then also have really interesting guests come on. And then
while you play video games and talk.
And then we talk, but they're also playing maybe a game too. I'm sure it's been done before, but I think it would be just nice to, because then people could see something happening and be like, oh, look, there's action in the game.
This is so common.
And it is.
Yeah, do you watch any of them? Any of those streams?
I live in a damn cave, dude. That's the thing. Oh.
There's a lot. There's one that's really popular right now, or gaining popularity. It is a hellscape. It's horrible.
Really?
It's called, but it's great. I love it. It's chaos. I love hellscapes. I mean, that's why I work on social media. I have to love it. It's a love-hate thing. Yeah. But there's one called the Kill Stream. And this guy's name is Trainwrecks TV. I personally, I'm not a fan of this guy. Like I think he's kind of, I don't literally follow him, but I've gone on his Twitter account and
see what's going on.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't seem like too bright of a guy. He's one of these just very like wants to be offensive types. And whatever, that's fine. Like I don't know if he does it for like it might just be for entertainment or whatever. But he hosts this stream that he calls the Kill Stream, and he invites on like. And it's almost always gamers, but like gamers that also do other stuff. And it'll be like 6 gamers, and like one of them is a social socialist. Like one of them is like a sort of progressive or like a liberal. Like one might be, or two of them might be conservatives or like kind of like skeptic leaning conservatives, and then one might be like a literal like white nationalist or like a neo-Nazi.
Whoa.
And they just go at it. Like there's no like there's very little moderation, and they'll just like yell at each other, and like it actually like. It's gotten so popular recently because it is actually pretty decent. Like it's interesting to hear the ideas in an open platform in a way where it's the differing opinions are so vile. Like it's such like a chasm between all these people that it forces really aggressive conversations. And sometimes that's just chaotic and horrible and really hard to listen to.
It could be interesting too, though.
It can be, exactly.
And there's gaming happening while this is happening.
Well, I'm not sure with the kill stream, but the people that do the kill streams all do that. So like they might like one of them I know is this guy Destiny. That's like his Twitch name or whatever.
Destiny.
He's been doing these debate things for like 5 or 6 years, maybe a little longer than that. And he just plays games and literally like has like a stream of people, and they'll be like chatting to him while he plays, being like, "You suck. Your view is bad here." And then he'll be like, "Well, why don't you come on and tell me?" And then like he invites them onto the stream while he's playing the game, and they just debate. And it's like, so that is something that's interesting to me. It just also sounds so chaotic and
beautiful.
Crazy. Yeah,
the hellscape.
The hellscape.
Embrace it. No, my favorite thing right now, though, it's actually my least favorite thing. It's like musician reacts to Elton John's.
Oh my god! Like on YouTube.
Yes, you click it, and it's an old grainy video of Elton John playing, and the guy will just pause and be like, "He's actually a really good piano player," and like everyone who's viewing is like, "Wow, yeah." I guess I never saw that.
Millions of views,
and then millions. He plays it again. He's like, "Oh, I love those sunglasses he chose." And I'm just like, "What?"
You could do this, dude. You could. The bar is so low.
And I love it. It's always so nondescript. It's musician or British musician hears this for the first time. And, and I don't know what these people's cred is.
There has to be some kind of like identity identifier to get you interested. Because there's always that like sect of people who are into British YouTubers. So it's like, oh, like there's a British person. I'll click on that.
And I know he's going to have a great opinion. He's more cultured.
He sounds smart.
Yeah. And they're awful. They are so bad.
Yeah.
I love them.
YouTube review videos are some of the worst ones out there. And I think, if it's not the most popular, it's like, popular is such like a ambiguous term, but like it's one of the most viewed genres, and I don't understand it. Like it's so, people, like there's some people who do it, and they just literally, like what you're saying with like an Elton John video, they might literally just play. I've seen this before. Like say like I'm the reviewer, right? And I'm on the screen, and then like in a box on the screen there's like the music video. Yep. They might play like an Elton John music video, and it plays all 4 minutes of the video, and they might just like laugh. You know what I mean?
That's
like
literally
that's all they do. Like they don't talk. Like they might just be like making faces, like oh,
wow,
and that's it. And that's the video. That's like the act, and they're getting views, and they're getting paid to just post that.
So my question, because I have seen like that. Hey, YouTubers, it's me. You know, I got a lot of likes and requests to do Elton John. So here we go, and then it'll cut to the video. Is it just because we want to see someone else who likes something we like, and be like, wow, they like it too.
That actually is a really good point.
There's a person also that loves that video, and now I love them.
I think that's
like, what's the point?
Definitely it. That's definitely it. I feel like that's happening right now with Game of Thrones. Like you're saying, you love Game of Thrones.
No, I love Game of Thrones. It sucks now, though.
Well, I was gonna say like the sort of the splintering of the fan base, where like there's like the people who like love the show and hate the show as like it's kind of going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you see on YouTube now, especially like after each episode, or even like that night. Sometimes you'll see uploads or like live streams, and you can just like the titles. It's always like it's pandering to whatever side you're on. It's either like recap of this week's like epic episode, or like recap of like all the things that were wrong in this episode. And it is like it's laying it out for the people who already feel that way, and then they go to it.
Why this show is failing, or,
and you're like, it is failing.
I kind of thought that too. Nah, man, but I love that show, and it's the biggest issue for anything that casts a wide net. Like the whole point of the first couple seasons are how far can we spread these characters? Yeah. Like literally on the map, how far can we spread them all? Yeah. And you love that hope and journey of where it goes, but ultimately they have to bring it back. Right. And then I hope the books get written. I haven't read any of them, but when I'm not giving any spoilers, but when certain characters haven't seen each other for seasons and then they get a 40-second clip.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that is not how
Give
that
me more.
Yeah, and so I can't wait for the books when I'll get a chapter of dialogue. I really wait for that because it's just the haste with which it's all coming back together.
Right.
I'm just like, man, I feel bad because these actors want to move on. The writers want to move on.
That's the thing. It's the scale of it. Like every time I talk to people about this show, I made a status on Facebook the other week where I was like mad at people critiquing the show, not in the sense that they shouldn't have critiques, because I have critiques of the show, and I'm like upset with certain elements of the episodes. But there's like now like a bandwagon of hate. Like I was kind of saying, there's like a market for it now, where it's like it's sort of like Walking Dead, where then it got like Walking Dead got actually like I think they're kind of like objectively a little different. Like you could say Game of Thrones is like bad or worse now than it was, but like Walking Dead just became, I think, an objectively bad show.
Really?
Like it's like I mean like the fan base kind of splintered after a couple seasons because the writing just fell apart.
Right.
But I mean like with Game of Thrones specifically, I think like you're saying, there's plenty of critiques to be made about the show, but then there's also this like horde of online outrage where like people are just nitpicking every episode.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like I told my coworker Jeff, who got me into the show a while back, he loves it. Like he loves the books. He's like obsessed with the whole thing. And we were talking about this, and I was telling him I feel like I want to like when I go into each episode, I just want to enjoy the episode, and like I'm gonna try my hardest to like suspend my disbelief and like not worry about whatever like might be like a little off or wrong, and then afterwards I can critique it. But I want to enjoy it. Like I don't want to be watching this to hate it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think like people forget this, like you're saying, the scale of how big it is and how much is like not only can like actors like potentially die, but like they get other roles that they want to like leave the show for, and like there's just so much, and like as the budget increases, like more money, more problems type of thing. Like it's like who do we please? Like do we please like the low hanging fruit audience, which is most people that we're reeling in, or do we please like the subsect of hardcore fans that want this like intricate line of dialogue between these two characters? And it's impossible. Like there's always gonna be somebody mad. Like you can't win.
And it plays. It's so much of that, and it's always so many things. I remember when I was a baller when I was like 20. I was in a cover band. We made a bunch of money. Yeah, and we do these like baller. Yeah, no, just baller weekends for a birthday or something. For a second,
I thought you were gonna say like you meant basketball. I was like, did you really play?
I tried.
Just over my head.
The only thing I can do in basketball is a chest pass. I'm very successful at that. Everything else sucks. So like when you see me on the court, I'm just teaching people how to chest pass because it distracts them. But anyway,
so like assistant coach material.
Yeah.
Specialty coach.
Assistant, because I hate to be the real coach who everyone hates. Like everyone loves the assistant because they have zero responsibility.
Of course,
they just have to please you.
Yeah.
But I was a baller. So we would have these massive birthday parties at public spheres because it's a lot more lively. Mm-hmm. You know, there's just more life. People can go off and do things. But we would have cheap champagne that you could buy at the store for $5, or you could be cool and buy it at the restaurant for $35.
Yeah.
You know? So we just have like a graveyard of 19 champagne bottles. Like by the end of the night, and we'd all split it. It'd be like 10 of us. But those nights would be so much fun. They were incredible. When they started, everyone was super excited for where it was going to go. Yeah. And then ultimately at the end, this person's like, I got to go. This person throws up. This person's passed out, and we got to figure out how they're getting home. And then the end, where the bill is paid, and it's a graveyard of bottles, and the night was incredible, but now it's like, oh shit, it's back to life.
Yeah.
And I have this much less money, and like this weird thing happens where these people who have been watching you all night, they start to peter over and check if there's anything left in your bottle. It's just really weird. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah,
it's like
barbarism.
Yeah, it's barbarism. Like, just let this night lay here and be good. And it was great. And that's sort of like when those nights would end, this feeling of that was so much fun, that was great, but it had to end. Mm-hmm. And Game of Thrones has to end, and it's sad, but it was a good journey. Yeah. And the end will never please you. It has to end, and it won't be good. It'll be rushed or forced because someone threw up and they had to go home, but that's just going to be the end of Game of Thrones. So I've resigned myself. I have not been happy with how it's ending, but that's just how every ending is ever. It's never a happy ending unless you're Robert Kraft.
Yeah. Well, it's so hard too when you're trying to push the stereotypical, like the envelope of what's expected, I guess, in genres. Like I feel like George R. R. Martin, I mean, like the Song of Ice and Fire writer or whatever. I mean, his whole deal with his mythology, like his whole mythos and like how he built Westeros and like these and Essos and all these areas. It's like he critiques the sort of the style that came before him of like J.R.R. Tolkien with Lord of the Rings and that whole world, because it's so by the book. And like obviously again, different time period, like he kind of laid the groundwork for people like George R. R. Martin. But when you look back at those stories, you just think, oh, it's very like clear, good guy, bad guy, light, dark. Like we have like our hero, our damsel in distress type of thing. Maybe some like underdog archetypes, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And then it ends and you get the happy ending and it's beautiful orchestrated music and you're like, that you feel good. Whereas like I feel like everything with the writing of George R. R. Martin and now the show Game of Thrones, it's so in the face of that. And every single season you're like, oh, this is my favorite character and now they're dead all of a sudden and you're like, what the hell? Or like this person, like you think they're gonna have some redemptive arc and then all of a sudden they turn their back and then
they're bad,
they're evil again. It's like it's never this black and white thing. So I feel like with writing, especially a story like that, like for so many seasons, so many books, and you get to the end, tying all those loose ends and trying to make it end in a way where it's not expected, but it's also not trying to be different for the sake of being different. Like it has to make sense. What a challenge. Like what a weird thing. Like you're trying to break the norm, but you're also trying to give people what they want, and you can't do both those things. You know?
And I really am. I don't even know. I can't say I'm excited because for the last couple episodes, I'm not excited.
You're not in it anymore.
I'm not, because I know I can't say how it's going to end, but I know how it's going to end.
Yeah,
and it's not going to be pleasurable. What I loved about Lord of the Rings ending is because it's so true. That whole idea of like you can't go back.
Yeah,
they're back in the Shire,
and like it's been overrun.
But it's like they can't go back to just caring about getting drunk and eating cheese and smoking pipe tobacco. It's like they've seen some shit. And now they can't.
I love that.
They got to go back on the streets, like the Hobbit streets, and that was the life for them. And so that's a very somber ending for me, but that's very real. So it's like as normal as the good and evil is, like that's a very real ending.
Yeah.
I just fear that they're like, well, this person has to end there, and we have 2 episodes. So no matter how quick this changes in them, like they need to get there.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have this happen, and they're just in such a panic rush.
Yeah.
That I'm just like,
I was literally telling my coworker, I was like, it feels like the way they shot this season that they could have done an entire season about the long night and then like an end season with like the Game of Thrones ending. If that's how they wanted to do it, like very easily could have stretched all this out and done probably a service to both parties of people who wanted more of that like storytelling, deeper context, and the people who want the epic like ending and fighting and all that.
I mean, that's why I'm not going to get too specific, but the long night has that one moment of like a 7-minute slow motion to really be like, hey, everyone, pay attention. Something big is going to happen and we're drawing out. Or they could have just had a season that actually built up to that moment.
The season was the slow motion.
That built up that moment. But instead, they're like, well, in this super fast pace, how are we going to get people to like care about this moment?
Yes.
And it happened, and I still didn't care.
Wow.
I was still like, whatever. Knew this was coming.
Yeah. I had such mixed feelings about it again, because like in the moment I really enjoyed it. Like I thought the episode was really, really great. And it's also like weird putting on like a scale of measurement, because like I'm comparing it to, I guess, what I would consider like traditional television, like what's been done. So I'm like, the scale of this it's insane that it's even like, it was even accomplished in the first place. But then like, going back to like the shortcuts and inconsistencies, it's like, I agree in the sense where there's certain elements of it where I'm like, why? Like there's certain decisions where like you just know it was rushed. Like it was. Like you can't like boil it all down to just writing decisions. Like there's certain decisions this is kind of like cutting hairs maybe, but like going back to this whole idea of like the online like outrage mob, there's definitely a mob of people who are dumb as bricks and they're just like hating the show to hate it because the people they like also hate it, and then it's like, oh yeah, I literally tweeted this, the Starbucks cup. And did you saw that?
Oh, I know about this.
The Starbucks cup that showed up in that scene that everybody was freaking out about, that was the perfect metaphor to me of what's wrong with the fan base. Because it's like, I thought it was funny and it's hilarious and I can't believe it sucks that it was in there, blah, 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 whatever, I agree. but like the fact that everyone was so retroactively mad about it was like the perfect signifier to how like there's a difference between like thoughtful critiques and then people that are just trying to be mad for the sake of being mad at the show. Like, I can't believe this was there. It's like, really? Did you notice it?
Yeah.
No, you didn't. Because there was a pan shot that was blurred into the background in a dark scene. And like,
Dude, it's funny because I try to see my mom and dad as much as I can because they're getting older, you know? And and my mom, every time I see her, she'll hit me with this line where she's like, yeah, did you hear about this thing? Like, everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. It was because the title that you saw was, Game of Thrones cups, outrageous. Like, the words
was a
she saw.
clickbait, like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she saw in this article. And then in her mind, it's like a big deal. Everyone's thinking about it. Everyone's talking about it. And not to go too off tangent or something, but I love when I'm watching one of the various news shows and they'll be like, the new hot candidate. And then, like, my mom will hear that. And then be like, yes,
that's the candidate.
This guy's a hot candidate,
yes.
And he's on. And I'm so over that. So going back to Game of Thrones, the cup, I didn't notice it. I didn't care. I was more sad that the show is failing. I'm more sad. Yeah. Fine, have a coffee cup in there. Let's talk about how they're all wearing wigs and how they're all wearing these fake capes.
Why don't we talk about the rest of the like I love going back to like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. There's so many moments where like Gimli's like running, loses a boot, and just keeps running. Like it's like okay, or like you see like a truck in the background if you look close enough. It's like okay, like do we want to like go back into every cinematic feat and be like, I can't believe that happened.
It just ultimately comes down to content, and it's it's someone's job to get someone to click on something and to get people to come to something. And it's like, so what can we talk about and get people excited? It's just a content war. Yeah. And I mean, man, the coffee cup. I was more upset that whoever was on that set was drinking Starbucks. Like, there's no boutique coffee shops.
We need to know who is that basic.
Yeah, what an asshole. But they probably have catered Starbucks.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's probably like a show sponsor or something behind the scenes. The whole thing was an ad. That's just like
product placement.
That's the lesson we're taking away from all of this is that everything is an ad.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's my Game of Thrones thing. That's what I got.
Dude, I love it. I mean, I'm glad we went on that little riff. I don't talk about it enough with people.
Battle of the Bastards.
One of the greatest battles of all time.
Of anything. Anything.
Yeah.
Take me back to the first film. Like, it's better than some real battles.
Oh, of course.
Like, people who really died, it was better in the Battle of Bastards. And that was what I was really hoping for when they said, like, oh, the scale of this battle is bigger than that. I was just hoping. But you know what those writing rooms were like. It was just someone being like, we don't have time.
Yeah.
We have to finish this. We don't have time. And that was probably said so much.
Yeah.
And like, just let's move it on. Let's get it done with and do our next prequel and the sequel and all these things that they're going to do. Not a sequel, I think prequel, but
yeah, the prequels.
Bunch of that stuff. They just want to go on and get people excited about that too.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot to be said too, just about the element of selling people a feeling or an experience versus selling them, like you said, you use the word content, meaning like we're kind of talking about it in the sense of good writing or good storytelling, like giving people something like that is way different than just like giving them what they think they want.
Yeah.
And that's tough too. Like I remember like even the opening scene with like the Dothraki charge and all the light, like their fires going out.
Yeah, come
on. It's like the scene, the feeling, like they're selling you like the feeling there, like the tone of like hopelessness.
Look what happened.
Yeah, and it looks so cool. So it's like they're giving you that like cinematic feat there, and like you're immediately like you get chills. It's like, oh wow, that just happened. Yeah, exactly. Like it's setting you up for everything. But then like in contrast, then you also have to like back that up and be like, wait, like what was the thought behind this?
Who ordered that?
Yeah, like why was this like the plan, et cetera, et cetera. And
you just gave them X amount more troops.
Yeah,
like, why was that was not military strategery right there? Strategery.
Yeah, writing, man. That's just it's a weird thing. But yeah, we can jump back. I mean, I love. I could talk about Game of Thrones forever.
Talk for hours.
It's the best.
Yeah,
it's it's just. I do hope that it's just like Lord of the Rings did, just like all the other past mythos do. Like I hope it inspires even better stories in the future, for whatever it's worth.
I wish that they make a sequel to the show, which actually takes place. It's supposed to have taken place during the show when they're all just in Winterfell. I just want to hear more like fireside.
Yes.
Like, you did what? Like, this is where you've been? I want to hear those moments because, honestly, I think it's this weird thing because when the show starts, everyone who's an older character is a war-torn... Everything they have is from battle and war, and they're all like, the glory of war, and they're all talking about that stuff. And now you have all these heroes who legitimately hate fighting and hate war, and none of them care about it. And it's just like, it's what had to be done, and none of it's for glory, none of it's just like survival.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, what do you do with those characters?
So interesting.
What do you, what now that they're, like, none of them are celebrating when they, the battle, no one's celebrating, nothing. They're all just sad.
Yeah.
And so I feel like they probably all have to die.
Yeah.
They all have to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking forward to it, but it's
I guess we'll see.
What's that scene going to look like if they all live?
Yeah.
They're just like...
Well, you get that, like, that hobbit at the Shire, like, what do we do?
Yeah,
like,
what do we do now?
Yeah.
I mean, do we all get together? None of us like talking about this.
Yeah.
And honestly, my question is, who is left?
Yeah.
In Westeros, who's alive still?
Right.
Anyway.
It's so interesting. It's very human in the sense where it's indicative of the times that we're in, where, like, I feel like, and we don't have to go down this road if you don't want to, but I mean, just like politically speaking and like culture war speaking, it's interesting how so much of what, and this is in every single case, it's not unique to this time, but like it is happening right now, just where parties are so unified over what they're against rather than what they're for.
Yeah,
it's like America, and it's in some, what a fucked up way, almost like they came together after 9/11. You know what I mean? It's like all these different people came together. It's like national tragedy. Like, wow, like all of a sudden, like we need to like reprioritize whatever. And like now, it's like there hasn't been like any, like, I guess I'm sure other wars have done that in the past, like certain like cross-cultural events that like have impacted the world have done that.
World War II.
Of course,
like
yeah.
That.
And now it's like with the culture wars, it's interesting how you look at like the kind of like the allies that like align somewhere like in the amorphous blob of the left and the amorphous blob of the right, like they function as allies and as compadres or whatever because of more so what they're against than what they're for. So it is interesting to think like what in the aftermath of like this current like really weird polarizing time period, like I wonder what it will look like when like a little bit of the dust settles and it's like now we have to kind of like coexist and live together. Like what are we gonna do?
I'm sure people always say this, but I mean, I don't know. They do talk about how politics changed in the 90s, where it was more, like don't sit with that person, like don't even communicate with that person. So I don't know. Maybe it's just social media. We get to get way more into each political official, and we get to hear more of their side. But I don't see where it gets back to, unless there's a war or
like some kind of civil war,
massive tragedy that happens, where then people are forced to like, all right,
like
we have a greater evil,
again.
We have to fight. Here we go, let's do it. Because right now it's just at a point where I'm sure these politicians like all are friends. Right. And they're like, man, I hate to have this belief, but I have to because this is my job.
Yeah.
Like, I've spent my life to get this position. I can't make a stupid decision.
Yeah.
I have to go with what people want me to do.
Yeah, there's like a level of cognitive dissonance where like you get to a certain level and it's like, I don't know how much you follow this, but there was a Joe Rogan podcast like a year ago maybe with Candace Owens. Do you know who she is?
Candace Owens.
You're better off not knowing who she is.
Is she the girl who like pretended that she hated? Well, keep going.
She is a black conservative pundit, essentially, very young, and basically like built her platform and her career off of. I don't want to trash her. Like there's a lot that goes into like that whole thing, but she's not a great person, and she very clearly, and I don't say that again, like going back to this whole idea of having to add caveats to everything. Like I don't say that based on her viewpoints.
Right.
I say it based on the fact that it's abundantly clear that the fact that she has those views are for like opportunism.
I've seen her in the news. Yeah,
she's been on the news. Yeah,
I've seen her.
She was on this podcast with Joe Rogan, who I watch like time to time, and this was like a pretty polarizing episode. And he was just like asking her like really basic questions about like why she thought certain things about certain views like on climate change.
Yeah.
And like I think there was like was it abortion? There was like a few like pretty like
Big topics.
big topics that are very like split down the middle, where it's like if you're conservative you almost have to believe this, if you're liberal you must have to believe this. And she just started like giving like these ignorant answers to these things, and he was just asking really basic questions like, why do you think this? And she didn't have a reason. She literally didn't have a reason, and she was just like, why does it feel this way? And then it got to the point where you're like, and this girl, she's not like some nobody, like she has millions of followers, like massive platform, like influencing like politics on a very cultural level. And it was just such like a very apparent like symbol, I guess, of the times, where it was like, wow, like you've literally reached this point of your career where you have a brand and you're selling to an audience, and you know that you have to have certain views to sell to that audience. Like if you were to like stray the path on abortion or climate change or whatever, all of a sudden you're not very marketable to this like pocket of the country that like is paying you essentially to tell them what they want to hear. And that's and you see that all over the political spectrum, but the once in a while you get those very apparent examples.
I love it because nothing makes me more happy than when you're talking to someone and they're really adamant about this view. Really adamant. And what they're telling you, there is no way it didn't come from their morning viewing of the news. And you go like, where did you hear this? And they're so reluctant to tell you because it came from the news, and it came from this source, and they did zero digging beyond that. They just, this person must be legitimate because they're on this site. And so many parents too, 50 and over, it's like, well, if it's on the internet, it's true.
Right.
And if this person has
like
a
huge
YouTube channel,
like illiteracy gap there.
It's like, well, if they have a YouTube channel, someone gave them that. It's like, no, you just sign in, and then you start putting videos up. And I'm like, dude, get with it, man. Yeah,
it's scary. It's very scary. Like it's like the information age and the misinformation age, and it's impossible to like. I've been writing and talking about this a lot on the show, just and not to go into major tangent, but there's this in 1987, I actually misspoke on a recent podcast. I called it the fair use doctrine. It's called the fairness doctrine.
Somewhere? Do you have a note? No, okay, just
remember. I was doing a podcast with somebody, and this guy was asking me questions about it, and I literally said fair use doctrine. And after I went back and listened, I was like, why the hell did I say that? I meant fairness doctrine. But there's this doctrine that was like abolished in 1987, and the doctrine, most people don't know this that are our age. Like older people know it because it was a big deal growing up. But like when this doctrine was abolished, and there's a ton of history we don't have time to get into here, but like basically the doctrine was put in place in the 40s as a way for like the mass media conglomerates of like newspapers, television, radio, etc., to present controversial issues in like a relatively fair light. Like
without taint too much.
They had to like, if you were going to speak about like a specific issue, you had to like demonstrate that you were willing to show both sides or have some type of like object or impartial element to your presentation. And that was in place for all those years. It got abolished by the conservative legislation or whatever in 87. Right after that is when like the conservative talk radio birthed, like Rush Limbaugh and then Fox News shortly after and all that. Yeah, then so that kind of like the culture wars really ramped up because then like both sort of like political parties started like pushing themselves further in those directions in opposition with one another. And it's just interesting because what was I trying to get at with this? So like regarding like information, like misinformation, it's just interesting because like today, like prior to that period, there was a sort of like, even if you didn't agree with it or there was bias and there was all these problems, obviously, like there was the sort of, what do you call that? The gatekeepers of media. And that's a big problem. Like you want people to have access to participate in everything, which is a big issue. But there was still like a level of like authority to it.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's just none. Now the floor, like the barrier to entry is demolished. Like you said, like you or I could just go on YouTube, start a channel, say whatever we want as fact, and then
be like lamps are shining fake light on us that's altering our belief. It's just you can say whatever, and people are like, I'm turning all lamps off.
Yeah,
I'm turning them all off. Did you hear about that?
Yep.
And I'm just like, dude.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Is there like a part of the culture war in general or like politics that interests you, or do you kind of try to stay out of it?
It gets me really depressed.
Yeah.
It gets me really, really, really depressed. I know a lot of people who work a long day and they come home and maybe someone makes them food or they make food for somebody and They turn on the TV, and there's sports, which is like just competition, who beat who, and then there's politics, which is competition, who beat who.
Yeah.
And those are the two. It's like the pillars of American society. It's like sports and politics, and just who beats who.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. I can't.
Yeah.
Like all I can do. I'm not a politician, and I don't want to spend my life doing that. But all I can do is like be there for a friend when they're in need, or when they're not in need, and then be there for a family member or even a stranger. Like all I can do is like try to the people around me do that for, and I'll be happy doing that, and I won't get depressed. But if I start to like dabble with things that I don't feel like I can help or hurt, I just feel so powerless to like. And just feel like there are strings attached to me. Like I start to see the matrix holes in my body of like that I was once attached to, but they're invisible. And then I lose it. Yeah. I lose it. And are you a Patriots fan?
I'm not a sports fan really.
You're not
Besides
a sports
UFC.
Fan.
Yeah. I'm big into MMA.
Are there any sports people that you hate?
No.
In the MMA. You like everyone.
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by hate. I mean, there's people I root against, but like,
why do you root against them?
I mean, for obvious reasons. Like, they're maybe bad personality, maybe they're a bad fighter, maybe they're a bad person. Like, various reasons.
It's weird because I feel, in politics, just like with sports or anything in life, I feel like there's like 20% either way that really care.
Yeah.
That they genuinely care and are super active.
Yeah.
And then everyone else, even though the periphery is usually like the small, everyone else is in the periphery. And they could care less. But it's what happens for me when I like or dislike something. It's usually because I hear way too much about it. Like you hear about at first I used to root for the Patriots because I'm like, oh, this loser quarterback who's doing good. Right. And then you're like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. And so it's like, I feel like race and gender and all these things are getting a really terrible deal because people, those people on the periphery, like the majority, they're just like, I'm tired of hearing about it.
They're checked out.
Racism isn't real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they just get into these like, I'm tired of hearing about it. And then they become activated.
Yeah.
They're like on the periphery, but there are moments, there are issues that activate them. And now they are a part of like that 20 that either care about it or hate it. And we're in a point now where because of the information, so many more people are activated. There are these issues that honestly, if they weren't talked about openly, they wouldn't even care.
Yeah.
But because it's talked about, they have to find their side.
Right.
And they have to be just like, that angers me. I'm tired of hearing about it. That's against my beliefs. Like, here we go. I'm on this side now. And I'm just like, man, like, if I had, it's like when you see a kid running around, and you're like, man, if I had half your energy, like I would be a great person. I can't spend energy getting like mad about someone's thing
right.
I could just be like, man, I can try to block that out of everyone around me's life. Like,
well, you're a sports fan then, right? I'm assuming.
Yes.
So you brought that up as an example.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you get really into it then you get pretty.
I'm into it where like when my lady comes in the room after a terrible loss, I'm just like, get out.
Don't talk to me. Yeah.
Well, she knows at this point. Like she'll come in really sweet and be like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's great.
I just want to tiptoe out of the room.
Yeah. And then maybe she'll like come try to condole me with like a pat on the head.
Yeah.
Like 3 pats on the head and then she'll leave. But I used to care a lot about sports and I used to love it. And then now I'm just you see the history of it and the misuse of the human body and people are like, oh, they put themselves to it. And it's like, now, for a lot of these people, it's like, you know your strengths and weaknesses. Like I know as a singer that I am not the best singer, I'm not the best musician, and I care a lot about words. So I'm like, that's what I put my energy toward.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people like, you know what? I don't get math, I don't get English, but I can sure as hell run real fast.
Yep.
So let me do that. So then we should be taking care of people no matter what job or what work they do. It's like, and there are people who I don't think necessarily get taken care of.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Is there insurance for people once they leave the sport?
No, I don't think so.
And they deal
I'm
with
sure it's similar to like the vets. It's like, once you're done, you're discarded and like expected to.
Goodbye.
Yeah, and like they don't have any. The big one with pro sports at least is like the whole idea of like money management. Like that's like the most common thing you hear is just like these people that make tens of millions of dollars over their career and then blow it all like 10 years into retirement. They're like 40 and now they're depressed and like suicidal and they don't have any identity. They can't do anything else. Like it's like, oh, what do I do? Become like a coach? Like do I go back into
they
this?
do. They go to high school a lot of times. But you just, of course they spend millions because they needed hip replacements, knee replacements. Their brain, they're like, hey, something's wrong with it. Can you check it out?
Yeah.
Like, here's a couple million. God. Check out my brain for me. So there's that aspect of it, which I'm just like, I don't know if I like participating in it. And then, as you get older, I sound like a grandpa, but and I am wearing suspenders. But it's like as you get older, I'm just like, what am I spending my time on?
Right.
And is it sitting down watching a game where I'm like, did you see that game? Where like every game ends like that.
Yeah.
It's either a blowout or it's really close.
Yeah.
And then the news will do its job of being like, this might be the greatest game I've seen in my life.
How is this different? Yeah. Like how is this different?
And every game somehow is this guy's like the most interesting game he's ever seen somehow. Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can put more stats in my mind.
Yeah.
But then I am at that point in life generally where I'm like, I'm policing a lot of things getting into my mind because I'm like, I just don't have the energy.
Right. Well, that's why I asked it because, I mean, I think, like, you mentioned, like, the correlation between politics and sports, which is a real one. Like, there's obviously, like, the teams, like, you root for your team, blah, blah, blah. I think the only major difference at least, is the sense that, like, sports is much more... it's not in every case like when a certain city wins a Super Bowl they go nuts and riot and whatever, but like in most cases, like when you watch your sports game and you're emotionally invested and then it's over, it's kind of contained into that. You know what I mean? Like whereas in politics it's like it affects the world more so.
I mean,
like,
sports you might hit someone with a bat in the parking lot, but that's
about
that's still at the event. That's still
you're at the tailgate.
That never happens when you drive home and then get in a fight. It's always like at that space.
Exactly.
So your point's still very valid.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's like, so that's the only difference I think I can think about, and in terms of, I guess the drain it has on you mentally, because like I feel like politics is more of just it doesn't give you more back. Like sports gives you something back.
Sure.
You get like the triumphant victories and like the lows, and you have like that sort of like weight, like that roller coaster of emotion. Whereas with politics, you get that in like way more in micro doses that make you slowly more miserable as a person. Like if you're a Republican and you live through 8 years of Obama, like that's 8 years where you feel like this thing is grating on you.
This is the worst. The world's ending.
Yeah, like America's gone to socialism, or like a lot of people thought he was a communist. Like like everything's uprooting, like racial tensions, whatever. And then it's the same with Trump. It's like Trump's president. It's like you're liberal. It's like, oh my God, like this is literally every day grating on you. And if you just check out, like you were saying, like if you're kind of one of those people on the periphery or whatever, like if you just check out of what's going on, you're a lot more happier because it's just like, I don't want to. But then at the same time, like it's hard to know that balance because like some people, it's this whole like, which I personally think is kind of ridiculous, but it's like this argument of like you have the privilege to back out of it. You know?
It's true.
You know what I mean? It's
true.
there's a grain of truth to it, but then there's also like reality, which is like most people, doesn't matter what the race, the religion, and the gender, whatever, most people are checked out of politics. Like most people just don't care. Like most people, like you said, they're fed their whatever, their newspaper or their like evening news, whatever, and that's all they do.
Yeah.
And then it's just like back to work and back to family.
Well, we live in like the short-term video game accomplishment. Like I don't want to do this long-term goal where I go to school and get this job. It's like I want to play 4 games and get that little prize that I get for the game, and like then that's my reward. And I think that politics does an incredible job of just sending you on this crazy loop where maybe it'll take 7 years for something to get partially done.
Yeah.
And people are just like, I can't sit here and wait for this. And every day they will just talk and talk and talk about new developments, new thing, and it goes nowhere, and you're bored.
Yeah.
But I love what you make a great point about sports. Like, I never leave a sporting event being like, humanity is over.
Yes. Well, it's like if that's your world of politics, that's every day.
It's every day.
Yeah.
And if you ever see someone hugging their briefcase on the ground, like, they probably just watched a lot of the news and they just don't feel like living anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, I'll research my shirt. Is my shirt made, sustainably? Is my chocolate, is it coming from someone who's happy?
Of course.
And it's at every facet of my life at this point. I'm just very hypercritical. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
And then you just get run down and
Well,
trained.
you, like I said before, everybody has a level of cognitive dissonance. Like, you can't exist in the world trying to feel everything.
Yeah.
Like, my wife is the most, I've talked about this on the podcast before, she's the most empathetic person I think I've ever met to her demise. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's her biggest strength, also her biggest weakness. Like, we have an ant problem in our house right now, and she's a vegan, and she doesn't want to kill the ants.
Are you kidding me?
And, like, she'll kill them. Like, she started killing them, but she feels bad.
Yeah.
And, like, I kill them all the time. It's ironic because I'm also an empathetic person, but I have, like, way more just, like, compartmentalized boundaries than she does. So, like, when we talk about it, I'll be like, you know what, I understand where you're coming from. And, like, I also, like, if I put myself in that mindset of, like, suffering and life and death, it's like I can make it to that place. I just can't right now because these ants are like crawling all over our counters and near our food, and I just have to take care of this. And that's like with everything. It's like the iPhone. It's like my iPhone was made in a factory of slave labor in China where there's like a net preventing people from committing suicide jumping out of their window of the factory, but like I still have an iPhone. You know what I mean? So it's like there's certain, and like go down the line of just like your issue. It's like you'll always find the thing that if you hyper focus on that thing, it's like, why am I doing this? And then you get to the end of that line, going back around to that thing you said earlier about the layers of superiority. You eventually make it to that point where you're like the hyper privileged hippie dude whose parent, you have like a trust fund, and you're living in the wilderness in like Joshua Tree, and like your parents are just funneling you money to like live off the land, and you don't have to be connected to society, and you can just meditate and take ayahuasca.
Sounds like Henry David Thoreau.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's like the end of that line. It's like, oh man, I just like can't participate in culture anymore, man. Like society's so evil. Like I don't want to be part of it. It's like you are part of it.
Mom, send me that check. I need to keep doing this.
Mom, I'm out of gummies again. Like it's literally
Can you transfer that money to gold and then send me the coins, and then I'll be good. Like.
Mom, buy me more Bitcoin. It's just the line just keeps going then, and you just drive yourself nuts.
And then you're just getting ground down and tired, and then someone's running by you with a bag of McDonald's, just smiling, like fully embracing the shit, and just running by you while you're just holding 5 chocolate bars in your hand. Which one am I allowed to eat because it's hurt people less in the forest? And I'm one of those people, don't get me wrong. I always have like 10 chocolate bars. Yeah. And then my lady will just come back, this one has peanuts. Yeah. We're getting that one. Yeah. I'm like, okay, thank you. I can be morally cleansed. Yeah. Because you said it's fine.
Yeah. And we need that. Like, we need that person to just, like, tell us sometimes, like, you just have to do the thing. Do the thing. Like, you can't live your life torturing yourself at every decision because you can't live. Like, you literally can't live. Yeah. I think about this down the line with almost everything I do, too. And it just, I don't know what it is. My brain is just way more, like, prone to compartmentalize. I just compartmentalize everything. I justify everything. And, like, I try to, like, keep things in a way where I can measure the harm in like different times of my life. Like if I have a lot of energy one week, you know what I mean? Like a lot of free time and energy, I'll spend that week thinking about these things. But if I'm in like a pinch and I'm working hard, I compartmentalize that shit and I'm like, forget about it. Like I don't need to be thinking, another time. I don't need to be thinking about every one of these decisions right now. It's tough, man.
Yeah, that's what I love about my lady. Not to out her, but I'll be like, I'll be cleaning the recycling. Yeah. Because you read those stories about how one dirty thing, your whole bag of recycling
then it goes into the trash. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm cleaning them, and then I let them out to dry. And then I'll like go somewhere, do something, I'll come back, and they're all gone. Yeah. And then I open the trash to throw something away, and there it all is. It's in the trash. And she wouldn't necessarily do it on purpose. Like I love her so much, I don't want to out her. But it's like
please, babe, please.
Yeah, she was just so hyper focused on something for work. Yeah, like a legitimate thing. She's at work. She's doing so hyper focused. She just threw it all away. Yeah. But I made that time, like to prioritize to like clean this and all that stuff. Right. And it's just like she's so busy. Like she's legitimately so busy. She doesn't have time to think about that. Yeah. And to me, I'm just like, oh no. And then I'll dig it all out of the trash and,
Right. Dude, all of life is brain energy and body energy. It's just like, where do you put that energy? It's nuts. It's like, I think about it in terms of like, I feel like a very privileged person, not in the sense, like, yes, in the sense of my life in general. Like, I grew up pretty privileged, but more so in the sense of like, my own biological like mechanisms, like the way my body and my brain works. Like there's a lot wrong with me, obviously, but like there's also a lot right. Like I'm like a high functioning like machine where I can just do more than most people. You know what I mean? Like there's some people who like they watch X amount of news or they follow X amount of news and it exhausts them and it wears them down. I can just do it all day. Like
you can watch the news all day.
I take it in all day from all over the spectrum.
What do you watch? What are your news? Your favorite?
So I don't watch like cable, none of that stuff.
Okay.
I don't like I don't Rachel Maddow, like Sean Hannity, name your left or right source. I don't buy the like corporate media type stuff. So it's almost all independent, smaller thinkers, like people that like mostly people that think in ideas compounded like removed, I should say, from source material in a way where like my favorites are probably, I'm trying to think, it depends on what you mean, like culture and politics. Like politics, I'll jump back and forth between Ezra Klein's show. He's with Vox. He does a pretty good interview show. He's like a really good interviewer. I'd say he has people probably from like moderate conservatives, some I guess you could argue far right, but mostly moderate to far left people on his show. Listen to Citations Needed. It's my favorite leftist podcast. It's more media critique, pop culture critique. They're obviously coming from like a more socialist worldview, but it's not explicit in the content. They're not like beating you over the head with that worldview. It's much more like, let's take this billionaire funded corporate media source and like go and trace its roots and go back to where this information's coming from. Like, you know what I mean? Like it does a lot of like deep dive type stuff. More on the right, I listen to Reason, the podcast. That's like a libertarian media company. And then the people that work for them, they have another, like they kind of like have a side, an offshoot called The Fifth Column. It's like Matt Welch and a few of these, like there's Camille Foster, Elizabeth Nolan Brown, I want to say her name is. They're all like kind of like libertarian-ish. Like they're kind of like culturally a little more left, like policy oriented, economically a little more right. And I like their banter. Like I'm not a libertarian. I guess I'm on the political spectrum. I land close to left libertarianism, so that's why I think I kind of am partial to that. But them, I don't know. I could go on and on. Like the Wright show, I love Robert Wright. I think he's a great left-leaning personality. He does a lot of like interviews across the spectrum. I get like more of my meathead shit from Joe Rogan. I grew up listening to him. Like he's the first podcast I ever listened to, and like I love MMA, so like that's kind of how I got into podcasts initially. So once in a while he has a guest on I'm interested in. Like I'm like, oh, this dude's talking about like mushrooms. I'm like, that's really interesting.
I love Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it's like he's very easy to love or hate because he's so polarizing. And
what I love about him is he brings on people from all over the place, and he'll be like, I was reading this thing, and it happened in, like, Asia in, like, the 18th century.
Yeah.
And then it will actually be like it was in Europe in the 20th century. And he's like, it's like he's never even close to being right, but he says it in such a charming
he's so confident.
way.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, it was something with like they were shooting rockets in the air, and then the guy's like fact checking back, oh, they shot fireworks. He's like, yeah.
Pull that up, Jamie. Pull this fireworks.
Yeah, pull that up, and it's never even close. And it's that's what I love about him, is that it's just, it's never really right.
Well, he's just a dude.
Yeah,
that's what I like about you. Like, talk about getting away from this shit. Like most of the politics I follow, like I follow a lot of like YouTubers, podcasts, like Twitter accounts specifically. Like talking about sources, I usually go to the source for the news. Like I don't get it from like talking about like this Reason podcast. Like I like some of the people that work at Reason. At least I don't agree with them on a lot of stuff, but I think they present news in a way where it's like it's counter to a lot of my biases, and it's done in a way where I know that they're acting in good faith, which is rare on like both ends of the spectrum. And I think that's like you get so caught up in that. Once in a while, you need a breath of fresh air, and you go to like comedians like Pete. I love Pete Holmes' podcasts, like Duncan Trussell's, Joe Rogan's. There's a bunch of these shows that are just there's like a breath of fresh air. It's like you go, it's like, all right, I just want to listen to some dudes or girls, whatever, just bantering. Like I just want banter. It's background. Like I can kind of almost check out in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. What about you? Do you have like specific like source material you like going to?
Oh, I love to watch mainstream media. I love it because it's really it's inspirational in that both sides, like it's genius. They'll do these things where they'll be like, they'll say their point that they want you to here.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, we went down to Texas and we talked to a farmer about what he thinks about the fences and how bad he thinks it'll be. And it cuts to him, he's like, yeah. And then they cut away. And it was like, he said, yeah. And that helps the point they already sent you to.
Of course.
And it's both ways. And it's always about what's wrong. Not like, here, let's have hope. And it's awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's awesome. If you go to the gas station, you can get gas. And if you go to either of those shows, you're going to get where you need to get.
Yeah.
And some people just they run on like anger. And it's with songwriting, it's something I always try to stay away from is like vengeance. Like something bad happens, whether it's a relationship or someone, like you say you or I and you wronged me and
get crossed.
Like, I'm gonna go write it. I'm gonna spend a year writing an album about it. And a lot of times it's successful. Like Adele has these great breakup albums. Taylor Swift has made her life the process of being attached to someone in the pursuit of love.
Right.
And then and it's men too. Like I brought up two women because they're very contemporary and popular, but men have been doing it for centuries.
Yeah.
Centuries they've been doing it. And it's something that I feel like it's a terrible stream to draw inspiration from. And maybe that's to my own songwriting detriment, but I try to push it away. The vengeance, I'm going to get back. But there are legitimately people who run on that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's their fuel is I'm going to watch what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it's a good source for it.
Yeah.
It's great.
There used to be like somewhat of a tradition of intellectual rigor in politics and media where there would be like these shows where like you'd have guys come on from very different ideologies and they were very astute and they were academics and they were really just educated in whatever area of expertise it was, and they would just like argue, but it was never like a shouting match. It was like maybe they hated each other, but they would just argue about whatever. That just doesn't exist
now
anywhere.
It's too boring.
It's too boring. Like you don't want to watch that crap. You just want to watch people yell at each other.
It's just like the reaction videos. It's like I need to see someone who kind of agrees with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, guess this guy with the bug crawling on his neck. Like, he agrees with me.
Yeah.
Which was a wonderful, like, Men in Black moment. I thought it was like, more with the sugar. Yeah. But that's what people need, and they know they can trust that they can get it there. But I wish I had more time for podcasts. Or, I don't know. As a writer, everything I do, I'm like, I want to have the energy to potentially be moved or inspired by something.
Yeah.
And so I find myself pushing so many things away because I'm like, I'd rather enjoy that when I might like it. It's like, why would you drive across the country to a museum if you're not in the mood to be inspired by the museum? So I'll just push it off. So podcasts, though, are my thing. If I could listen to them more. Yeah. If I had the energy to take in the information.
So what's that energy being replaced with? Is it music? Is that what you're like spending that time like?
It's work a lot.
Yeah.
It's work. I teach music and I teach like, lesson, then it's over. And it's only X amount of hours a day. It's not like a full job, but like it's very much like a performance, because no one wants to go to a teacher that you go in the room and they're like, hey,
of course, yeah,
come in.
Yeah, you gotta be enthusiastic.
I've taught this song before. And it's like, I would never want someone to do that to me.
Of course, yeah. Nothing inspiring about that.
Yeah, I want to, like, seeing you right now, it gives me energy. It gives me, and it's not something I could put in my mouth and I'm like, oh, I can take this whenever, but it's like, that's weird. But it's like, it's not like a pill or something.
I just want to bottle you up and just like, suck on you while I drive to work and like a bottle.
Oh boy. So, but it's it's that I want to be that for people where they feel like it's a safe space that no matter what beliefs or background or anything that they come from, it's like it's a safe space to come, have fun, pursue something, and then like I want it to be trustworthy.
Right, of course.
That's what they're gonna get. And I know a lot of teachers, and it inevitably happens to me sometimes too, where music is a thing that a lot of time it's based on if you feel successful with your music. And a lot of times these young guys, not that I'm not young anymore, but these young guys and girls that come in to teach and they're fresh out of a school where they learn music and their ambition is high. They're on fire.
Yeah.
And so the lesson is you're giving me money that I'm going to go take and pursue my music, and then I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And it's this very much like the lessons are a means for them to do something else.
Right.
And a lot of times it's also they come with this expectation that my music should move you as much as it moves me. And I'm like, a lot of times it's people who come from work.
Yeah.
And like they just want to pursue some music. And it's a kid who's just been taught shit in school for hours and they just want to learn something. And you really kind of have to leave all your baggage at home.
So where do you where do you feed off of then? Do you like just relaxing and shit like do you need space? I guess is what I'm saying. Do you need silence? Do you need the kind of like room of just everyday busyness or life busyness, whatever? Or do you like you're talking about hiking earlier? Is like that like a feeding zone for you?
Hiking is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I legitimately, like every day we're sold things to feel more human, like wellness. Be well, here's a product.
Yeah.
And this thing, here's another product.
The
It'll
juice
help
detox,
you.
essential oils.
Yeah, all of it. All of it. And like the time I feel most human is when I am naked in a stream in a national park. Like that is when I am most human.
Put that on your tombstone.
Yeah, seriously. That is when I feel legitimately every atom in my body's like activated.
Yeah.
And stress-free and happy and excited. And everything we're sold is like nature's seasoning, Nature Valley apple, and here's your home in Nature Grove.
Yeah.
And everything is it's a product that's artificial that's being sold to you as being natural.
Yes.
And yet no one makes time to go out
actually
in
do
nature.
it, yeah.
Like just go to nature. There.
Yeah.
But you're fine. You'll spend the $10 to get in the national park. You're fine.
Yeah.
But it's like, there are bears there. And I do think one day I will be eaten by a bear, but
like Grizzly Man?
Yeah, like Grizzly Man.
Yeah.
And then my lady will be hitting it with a pan and doing nothing.
It's all recorded.
Yeah.
Oh God. R.I.P. Grizzly Man.
You know, yeah.
And his girlfriend.
Ugh, rest in peace. But
so sad.
So that's a worry, and mosquitoes are the worst.
Oh man,
they
skeets.
suck.
Ugh.
They suck. But there's nothing like. I'll go to a waterfall with friends. Like we'll hike 5 miles.
Not Glenanoco anymore.
No,
though.
Is it officially shut down?
What's the date? I think it's either now or it's next month.
Is it the same as Martin Tower? In Bethlehem, Martin Tower,
is that shut down?
They're both going to get. Well, it's going to get demolished, I think.
They're not demolishing it.
Really?
Like they're taking the they're taking the trail out. They're like literally excavating the trail away. So
are we talking Glenanoco or Mountain Tower?
Oh, sorry, Glenanoco.
Okay. Yeah, they're they're not demolishing the mountain.
Imagine, yeah, they blow up the mountain. Yeah. Just bomb it, drone it.
It's over.
Nature has run its course.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's sad.
They're taking it all away.
Too many kids. I almost said dumb kids. That is dumb kids, but I don't want to demean people who have died.
I don't know. When you go to Everest, not that I've been there, so I'm speaking with ignorance, but you expect this will be dangerous.
Yeah, people have died.
And Glenanoco, I feel like even though there is people know about it, and they're like, "Oh, it's dangerous." It's still, where is it? In PA?
Yeah, right.
It's like
some
whatever.
Nowhere town,
It'll be nothing. It's nowhere else that's dangerous. It'll be fine.
You get too close to that waterfall.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
So insane. You get up there, being up there, you do realize, if this is, the wintertime, or, even a rainy day, it's you get close to that edge, you slip, there's nothing to hold on to.
Man.
Once you slip, you're...
I've never been there. Maybe it's good I haven't.
You never been there?
It could have been my end.
Let's go. It's probably close.
Should we go
let's just
before
go.
it's
Let's
over?
just break in. Yeah.
There will be a lot of break-ins. And now who's going to find the dead bodies? Because you're not allowed to go in anymore.
Oh, God, yeah. There's all this debate in, the township, I know, over what to do with, the resources. Because that was, the biggest thing. It was taking up too many resources from, the fire department and all that. Just all the people, getting injured and falling and whatnot. And, yeah, it's a mess. But anyway.
When all the businesses are failing because no one's there anymore.
Exactly. It's that whole town of, what's it called? Jim Thorpe. It's
Poor Jim Thorpe.
Yeah, it's just the abandoned coal mining towns. Sad.
That have cool theaters, though.
Yeah.
Historical.
They're very cool areas, but yeah. Anyway, dude, I feel like I totally sidetracked you there. We were just talking about cultural elements of inspiration, what inspires you to do your work and all that. So when we can actually, you know what? Let's take a step back in the conversation.
Okay.
I feel like so we just jumped into you teaching music, and now I know that, and that's very cool. But we've spent an hour and a half talking.
Oh, it's been that long. Jesus.
Yeah, I know it flies by.
I love it. It's great.
I'm interested to know in terms the way you talk about songwriting and your musical process. It's very like it sounds like you're trying to step out of what's expected or the ordinary in some way. Like, do you have some kind of inspiration or process to your songwriting that would you say is like unconventional in a way? Like, how do you approach this process that is different than just like what you were saying before, just the kind of classic like breakup, like a Taylor Swift cycle or whatever?
I definitely have a lot I've built up, and it's getting harder to write songs. I'll say that because I'm having like rules. Or I'm like, it can't be vengeance and it can't be about a relationship. That just get off your ass and go talk to that person.
Yeah.
Just be like, yo, here are the issues I'm having. What are your issues? Like,
yeah.
And so much of art is made of pain. You know, you take your pain or your hurt, and it's like, or your life could be more artistic, where you could, if there's pain, you can go. But you know, that's not to diminish. There are certain people who literally have to create because they're in this situation.
People that live in mental illness and trauma and all that. Yeah.
But I'm talking if it's a relationship based, if it's a person based thing, go talk to the person.
Yeah.
So I'm creating more rules that make it harder and harder for me to write about anything. And so that's been a challenge. Same with my relationship with my lady. It's I've never been one of those people who could write like if she's angering me. Like,
yeah, you're like trying to almost like cultivate some type of emotional draw for inspiration.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll just go talk to her and we'll work it out and fine.
You're too healthy to be a songwriter. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. And then it's actually making me really sad and unhealthy because then I'm like, well, what do I write about? But I guess what I've been writing about lately a lot of times is, you know, I have a song I released recently called Organ Donor, and it's kind of one of those songs where, you know, they ask you if you're going to be an organ donor or not. And it just, I was looking at my license one day and I was just thinking, whenever you hear about sports, the sports talk radio, they'll be like, well, he just wanted it more. Like, this person had more heart. This person just had more heart. Yeah. And to me, I just think, I'm like, well, is it literally my heart? Like, or is it just me? And if I gave my heart to someone, like, they could fulfill my mission better than me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I guess that you could say it's like cheesy and shit, but so is everything. But so I've just been kind of getting into more of those realms of thinking about myself. I've never written about myself. It was always about other things, other people. It was more interesting to me.
Yeah.
I'm tired of me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really tired of me. So I wanted to look out, but then I was like, wait, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it's because I'm always looking out. Let me address some things. And also, a lot of times you go through phases where you'll spend a year writing about stuff and then a year recording it or half year, and in that same year you tour with it all.
Right.
And there are certain issues I go through as a human, as a person, and all that stuff, of course. And so I've been trying to write songs about it so that, like, while I'm singing it, it's like a reminder.
Yeah.
I'm, like, singing what I wish I told myself every day so that it's constantly fresh. Like, every day I need to hear it.
It's like a meditation.
Yeah, every day I need to hear it. So I've been finding more relevance in writing about myself and messages to myself. Whereas before I would have been like, get over it, write about something higher, more elevated. But what is that?
Yeah.
Well, what is more elevated to write about than like, hey, dude, look out. I know, like, past Travis is writing songs for future Travis.
Yes.
To be like, dude, just suck it up, like, deal with it.
Yeah. Why was that originally your thought process? Was that like an ego trip thing? You're saying like you were kind of tired of you, but it's like that's kind of, it runs in reverse of what most songwriters or artists, because artists tend to be egomaniacs. Like, where I'm full of myself. I mean, like, I'm very critical. Like, I hate myself, but you know what I mean? It's like a dance of like, I love myself and I hate myself.
I hate myself, man. My lady and I will drive to Philadelphia, and it's about like an hour 20 for us. And like, I can't shut up the whole way there.
Yeah.
Constantly trying to make her laugh, constantly trying to be like Travis the Entertainer.
Of course.
And then on the way home, I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't even literally want to hear my voice.
Yeah, like you spent yourself.
I just want to drive in silence and not say anything. Because it's just, I think old people have it, like really old people have it right. Where I constantly feel this tension of like trying to go and figure something out and be this and be that and be that. And they're just like, they're too old to get up. They're like... I don't want to be. My hips hurt. Like, I'm gonna stay right here, and I'm fine. But I'm always finding that I'm like tired of certain aspects of myself, because you're supposed to arrive in life. We're like trying to arrive at a place where we're healthy, but then like I get there and I'm like, I'm tired of this. I want to be unhealthy again, so that I have to arrive again. And I don't know. And so with writing, I guess I felt that, where it was a journey and then I'm tired of it. And then I'm like, all right, well then let me go down a journey again and then be tired of it again.
Wow. So I'm trying to like wrap my mind around. No, it's great. It's just interesting. It's just so in contrast, I guess I'd say, to most songwriters I know, like including myself. I mean, like talking about like it's all about the journey and like you want to arrive. And how that kind of creates like a cyclical issue with a lot of songwriters. They kind of end up creating their own, like the Taylor Swift thing. She's a great example because like it's literally like relationship to relationship to relationship. It's like you create this like reality for yourself to then like perpetuate your own artist, and like your own brand and everything. And like that is like a thing that I think most artists do. It's like you need inspiration, and most artists, they're tortured in some way, so they feel like I can't just get up and put in the work. I have to like be inspired by something. Like I had this guy on like last year named oh my gosh, Trevor Gordon Hall. That's who it was. I was trying to remember who I did it with, and he's one of the best musicians I know. He's fantastic.
I've heard of him.
He's like he does international touring. Like he lives right in Collegeville, right by me, and amazing songwriter, amazing guitar player, and he has like a shed that he built in his backyard, and he literally like he was talking about just how he forces himself. It's his job now. Like he's a full-time songwriter, and it's crazy, and he just does it every day. Like he just goes to his shed, spends like 6 to 8 hours or maybe more or maybe a little less depending on the day, but just puts in the work even if he's not feeling it, even if it sucks. And I feel like that attitude is the exception, not the rule with songwriters. Like the rule with songwriters is this like, I need to feel it in my bones. I need to make this about me. Like you need to hear my story, Travis. Like I'm here to like bleed onto the stage, and now you have to somehow like clap. You clap for me. You're like, yes, Nate. Like, yes, like you are so deep or whatever. Like that's like the common story. So like, are you saying for you that when you get on the stage, is it less? Are you trying to make it less about yourself and more about something else, or do you feel like the energy that you're exerting, it's like it's culminated into that moment, and then you just want to be done with it? Like I'm just kind of like I'm trying to, I guess, flesh out a little bit more of like your own feelings.
At this point, my shows tend to be just me making fun of myself.
Like, you're pretty funny on stage.
I'll wear this. My lady got a bathing suit a little while back, and it came with like a complimentary hat that said "Slice of Paradise." It's like this blue denim hat, and I wear it. And I should have brought it, but it's always like cocked to the side in like a sad, it got dislodged from my head, and I just kind of didn't have the energy to even like move it back. That type of thing. So I kind of just wear that and just ad lib a lot of songs now.
Really?
Where it'll be at that vamp at the end of the song. I hate that word too. But it's just like where you're hitting this song, going between two chords, and I'll just start like rapping about like buying sushi. And I want to make sure it doesn't have like anything hard in it because it'll give me acid reflux. And I'll just like 4 minutes, I'll just keep going. And to me, I'm finding I like comedy a lot more than music because there's something about the dedication required. Like, I think a lot of musicians don't like themselves.
Yeah.
But then there always is that aspect of, like, but I am a genius.
It's me. Yeah. It's like look at me.
End of the day. And I don't, like, teaching has really enlightened me because there are kids who are like, well, one day you can drive in my limo. And they're, like, 9 when they say that. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, is that what I've been living? And I guess maybe my music sucks, which isn't why I'm more successful in the conventional sense. But to me, it's just been about like I just want to write a song, man.
Yeah,
I just want to write a song that I can look on and be like, oh, I wasn't trying too hard, and like, oh, I didn't just hand it in because I was lazy and didn't want to rewrite for that verse. Like, I just want to look back and compare the song to what I wanted it to be, and like, did it work out? Cool. Did 5 people hear it? Sure. But it's like at least I don't have to be like worried about other aspects of it. Like I'd rather my greatest worry be did I do that song justice than like how many people like it.
Well, what is your motivation behind it then? Like, is it more personal, like therapeutic, or do you view so that is how you view it? It's just kind of like for you, because like there is that like element where like people like they might it exists on a spectrum. I feel like everybody kind of does it for themselves in a way, but then a lot of people also do it to be like, you all have to like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I'm going to tell you something you didn't think of.
Yeah.
And, Jeez. I guess I'll find myself like in my lowest moments, I'll just be like trying to figure things out and being like, I'll try this thing, I'll try that thing to like pick myself back up. And I always after that be like, when's the last time I wrote a song?
Yeah.
And it usually tends to be when I'm in those low moments, like, oh, it's been 2 months. Like shit. And then I'll write and I'll feel better. And it's kind of been like, that's probably why I started in the first place. Because I didn't feel well. And it was like this thing made me feel well.
Yeah, it made you feel good.
It made me feel good. And then I just was like, oh my gosh, you can do that and make a living?
Yeah.
Like, that's an incredible idea.
Right.
And so then it just, that kind of pushed me. Although eventually you get involved with people who tell you things.
Yes. Yeah, you become part of the system.
Yeah, and then pretty soon you start making decisions based on like, well, is this a smart move? And, and then you get kind of sidetracked. And I've been down that road. And then I kind of pulled totally out and was like, nope.
Yeah.
No. And then I just was like, I guess I just have to get back to songwriting.
Yeah.
And like, not, well, what am I going to do with this? It's more just like, I don't care if I do nothing with it. I'm just going to record it, feel better, have it, and then share it with friends and stuff. And it's not sustainable. I mean,
it's very pure.
If you're trying, it's my layer of superiority. But but if you're trying, like, do not listen to anything I have to say if you're trying to make it as a musician.
Right.
I am like the anti-musician.
You've like removed yourself from the process.
Yeah, like, do not ask me for advice because I'll be like, just record it and whisper it into a tree.
Yeah. Well, it's so annoying. Like when people do go to other people for advice in songwriting to make it because. Again, I like speaking in terms of exceptions versus rules. Like, who is the exception? What is the rule to a certain circumstance? And like with this, you can always find exceptions in exceptional people. Like, I'm trying to think of off the top of my head, like someone who was just an amazing DIY songwriter who then made it all the way to the top charts on their own. Like they did it their way. Like Bon Iver is a good example. Like, totally like goes into a cabin, records music, whatever, ends up becoming like one of the most iconic indie records of all time, and then becomes this like international star, and then kind of like hates that he's a star, and then kind of like goes back to the shadows.
It just makes him more charming. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like his journey, man.
Yeah,
but he like it's just there's people like that, and they're the exceptions.
Yeah.
Most people in any genre. To get to that point, they are like treating you like stepping stones. They're cutting corners. They're cutting deals with shady people. They're trying to mold and mix them and just like really just like mess with their identity in a way until it becomes whatever the thing needs to become famous. And like we all know that's. But by the point people make it to those top charts, it's like they aren't who they were when they started in a lot of cases. You gain something, but it's like Thanos with like the Avengers movies. It's like what did it cost? Like it literally costs people their lives, and in most cases, it's like you become this brand, this larger than life identity, and the person that you were when you started is largely, and like I want to say it is left behind, but like I do want to say, obviously, it doesn't mean they've ruined their lives, but like they've changed dramatically from the person they were, and I think it's a healthy fear to have in your case to be skeptical of that.
I'm skeptical of biographies in general. I think that we live in the biography era where it's, well, I have to make it by 19. Because this person did. Okay, maybe I had this setback in my life, but by 25 I'll be able to do it. And we look for these examples of people we can live our lives by. And these biographies have all been like romanticized and made bigger and greater. Just like the Bible, where there's a character who makes a decision, and it's just like it was the easiest decision for them, but really they were probably like, holy shit, this sucks, what do I do?
Yeah.
But we make it look so easy.
Yeah.
But they were enlightened. And we definitely live in a very over self-conscious generation where biography. Like we need all these great stories around us. And I wonder what it was like to live in a time when you didn't have biographies to look on.
Right.
And were people more chill about like doing things at certain times in their lives?
Right. And it seems like it's crazier and crazier now with like people like Billie Eilish, who gets famous at age 14.
Yeah.
And then like Mason Ramsey, that the Walmart yodeler kid.
Poor kid.
He's like 10 or 11 when he got famous.
When he gets like poetic when he's 20, he's like, my life has sucked. Like I was manipulated. And
like my grandparents used to be to make $1.
And then like, who can I trust anymore? My own family used me.
It's true though.
Yeah.
It's actually true. Like it's everything is a brand. Like it's like there's this one girl. I hate that I can't remember her name. My wife has showed me her stuff a million times. She has been kicked off YouTube and Instagram, I think, multiple times because she's 12, I want to say, and I don't know if it's her parents that do it or they at least enable her. She's one of these like influencer types who's like a 12-year-old and she's like posting like scantily clad videos and pictures like online, and she lied about her her age to get like a YouTube account and shit. Like she said she was 15 or whatever you have to be, and it becomes this whole thing, and it's like, but people want that. It's like there's a market for that, and that's what's so creepy and weird. It's like we culturally crave these weird stories, like you're saying, like we the biography, like we want to make it like younger, we want to make it crazier. Like how can we make the person's story more insane, more interesting than we've ever heard before?
And then there are people who are impressionable enough, and like what we love about high school and college is it's like the bumpers of the bowling alley. Like they're there, we're not going to hit the gutter as long as we're getting good grades, staying in high school. Then at a certain point you reach like where the path stops.
Yeah.
And like biography is a good guideline. It's like a good, if I just follow this, I'm going to be successful too. And it's just not true. And then you usually end up crashing and burning harder. But yeah, like I said, I'm the anti person to talk to music. Like I just want to show. People have actually been like, dude, your shows are really depressing. They're funny, but they're depressing. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't want to run around on stage.
Because of your stage presence? Is that what you're saying?
because I don't run around on stage anymore smashing guitars, and that kind of disgusts me a little bit.
You're pretty funny. Like last time, you're very like you use a lot of humor though on stage.
Yeah, because life sucks and it's funny.
Yeah.
Like that Joker trailer is amazing. Did you see the?
Oh yeah, the most recent one.
Where it's like he says something where it's like, I used to think life was a tragedy, and then I realized it was a comedy.
Yes.
And I'm like, it turned like a light on in me. Where I was like, you are so right. I love that.
Yeah, those lines are so blurred.
And I've just been living that for a while, but to hear that, I'm like, yes, you get me.
Yeah.
Joker character. That was written by some guy.
Yeah, you're the archetype of the Joker.
Yeah. Hey,
that's you, bro.
I got plenty of time. Biography-wise, when did the Joker become the Joker?
You're right. He was an adult, bro.
He was an adult, so I have a good idol right there.
That's perfect.
The Joker.
Yeah, you'll never be Mason Ramsey. Mason Ramsey, but you can be the Joker.
Oh, man.
Do you foresee like I know you said you're interested in comedy, like is that something you want to try out?
I would love to, but I've just been to too many open mics in my life where there's like a late 20-something really drunk who's just like goes up on stage, hasn't prepared anything, and just starts rambling, and everyone in the crowd's like, man, and they say like a silent prayer. They're like, God, please don't have me end up like this guy. Please.
Why does it have to be you?
That could be.
Like,
I see it though.
If you like prepared and you like wanted to actually do it, you have the time in. There's certain people that have like a stage presence to them when they play. You know what I mean? I've never had a good songwriter stage presence ever, and it's weird because like I'm a very confident, like talkative type person. But when I get on stage as a songwriter, there's been a couple shows that I've clicked with the audience, but like most times I just have a hard time making that connection.
I always think you're great.
Whatever, dude. You're also very kind, but like every time I've seen you play, like you have a certain like aura of audience control. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
I was talking to someone recently about this. It's like it helps when you're good. Like you have to be good to control it. If you suck, then you can't really control an audience either way. But like when you're good and they respect you, and then you have a certain personality, you can kind of dictate how the audience feels with your music. And like usually with your shows, the audience gets very quiet in between songs, and then you crack like a dry humor joke. And they laugh, and you feed off of that. Dude. And it's like it's a notable thing for sure as a viewer.
I'm glad you like it, because so many of my close friends would like, man, I can't go to your shows.
Well, they
anymore.
know you better.
Like, they're like, I am cringing. I am cringing for you out there. To me, like, I love that feeling of people being like, is he okay?
You're like uncomfortable.
Yeah. I see. Is this it for him? Like, is he going off stage and we will never hear from him again? Like, I love that, because I don't know. It's just I've been to too many shows at this point where, the artist is like, I'm not going to say anything between songs. And I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Just fucking talk.
This is your moment.
Say something like funny or anything, because honestly, I leave those shows being like, that guy is a dick. He thinks he's great. Like
he thinks he's too good.
He's too good.
Yeah, to do that.
I'm going to do the Bob Dylan, like the biography thing. I'm going to show up. I'm not going to say anything to the crowd. and then I'm gonna go drive to the town. And if I don't know, I'd rather you embarrass yourself at a show and try to talk to someone than just say nothing.
Yeah.
It's like that's so uninteresting, you know.
Yeah, there's a certain level of mystique that certain artists try to cultivate.
I hate
and it's so annoying. Yeah, because it's not real, and it's never. As soon as you lift the curtain, like on who that person is, it's never real.
Yeah, because usually they have to go backstage and take a dump. Like,
exactly.
And they're like, dude, I know you're gonna do
they're
that.
taking a dump. They're smoking a cig,
and then they're gonna laugh with all their friends backstage smoking a cig.
Yep.
It's like, why can't you take that and just like laugh and tell us something, anything, just anything. Tell us like this town sucks and this venue's not as good as I thought it was. Like anything.
Yeah.
That, and I'd be like, man, I'm gonna buy your album.
Yeah, but it's part of the brand. It's part of their brand, though.
Yeah.
They have to like sell a personality, which is so obnoxious. And like, there's definitely certain people, again, spectrum. Like, there's certain people that are darker and like more to themselves, more introverted. And like, totally makes sense if you're gonna be quieter. Like, I know I've seen people play like Andy Hull from Manchester Orchestra. Like, I've seen him do solo shows or like Radical Face. I opened for Radical Face one time. It was like one of my favorite shows ever for us so far, actually. And so these are super quiet, timid type guys. Like, they're very like, they're not comedians, but they're still funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll give you something.
Yeah.
Like, they're not sitting there trying to be like better than you. Like, I don't need to partake with this audience. Like, I don't need to give and take. I'm just gonna sit here and be above you.
I mean, if that's like, if you're not gonna say anything between songs, in my mind, don't sing your songs. Like, just go up, play with your back turned to me, and don't even sing. Like, just don't even, because like just instead of singing, why don't you just like instead of holding a note, just don't hold the note and just tell me things. Like, just tell me your songs.
Yeah.
Singing is actually harder than talking because you're taking a word and you're just extending it.
Right.
Instead of being like, so hello, you're like, so hello. Like, just fucking talk to me, man.
Yeah.
And I saw Haley Hendricks. Have you heard of Haley
No, I
Hendricks?
don't think so.
She's fucking amazing. I saw her open for Andy Schaaf in Jersey City, and I heard her play, and then I went out to buy her album, and she was just there. And she's not huge by any means, like but she was just there, and she was sweet, and she was just like, hello.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was awed that she said hello instead of being like, here's my album.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Like, I could have just pitched up a chair and just been talking to her for hours. That would have been annoying for her, I'm sure. You know?
Right.
She ultimately probably has anxiety and is like, all right, let's get this over with. I don't want to talk anymore. But that was someone who was like, she was there, she interacted, I bought her album for it. And I will buy another one and another one. But if you're gonna give me that shit, like, thanks for coming, that classic line, like, thanks, and then just leave, like, I don't.
Yeah, it's obnoxious.
I want to invest in you. Like, that's what I'm doing by buying your album. I'm investing in you.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, you couldn't even say hey.
Well, we kind of. I was talking on a recent podcast with another song. Do you know Kim Edwards? Do you know Kim? She's out from out your way, I think. Actually,
really?
She's like a local songwriter. Yeah, she.
I'll check her out.
Yeah, she's great. We were talking about just like there's a difference between songwriters who are just songwriting for the sake of it, and then people that are trying to build a brand for themselves. And the lines are obviously very blurry in that sense, but like there's definitely, you can tell in terms of like being invested in like an artist that you want to buy from or whatever. It's like you can tell when the personality and the brand that they've conjured up is like part of who they are, or if it's like a front, and it sucks when I almost care less if like they're pretentious or whatever, or like an asshole, if you can tell that that's just like part of who they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want that, obviously. It sucks that you're like that, but like if that's part of what you are and like whatever, that's okay. Like I can at least accept that. But like so much of it's like a conjuring trick that like people are trying to, like you become a songwriter and like people start buying your shit and they start following your music and they start liking the things you post online, and then all of a sudden you're offering them something, like you're saying, like they're invested in you, so you're having to give them something, and so many people take that as an opportunity to just be something that they're not, and that's where the lines get just messy to me, because I want someone like, if it's Lana Del Rey. Like, I like that Lana Del Rey has built a brand for herself where she is this, like, Americana, like, weird, like, troubled woman who's like, you know, like an iconic personality, but also kind of awkward and like doesn't really know who she is, and she's kind of trying all these hats. Like, it's this weird thing where I'm like, for whatever reason, I like that. Maybe if I met her, I'd hate it, but like I like that for her. And I've seen her in interviews where she's like super awkward, and I'm like, is this fake? Is it real? I don't know, but I like the brand. I like the feeling I'm sold when I listen to her music or whatever. But yeah, there's just certain people that you can just tell it's all very forced, and it just sucks. Like you want to feel like you're getting something, and I feel like when you offer some comedy or offer some kind of commentary, even if it's like political, like. I'm the opposite of most. Like most people are like, oh, I don't want politics in my music. I'm like, give me politics. Like, give me religion. Give me something. Like I want to feel what you feel. Like I want your take. I want your heart that's in it. Because like for you, I mean, you're saying like what kind of inspires your music? Like you're trying to configure stories and things that are outside of yourself. That's super interesting, and I want to like know more about that with the artists I'm invested in. Like I don't want to be sold just this like cookie cutter breakup. Because for the sake of a breakup song, like I want to know that that's like part of you and like a thing that you deeply felt and feel. Like when I watch you sing it, I want to feel it, you know, while you're singing that part. Like if it's a song about like your friend that died, you know what I mean? Like I want that to be real. I don't want it to be like this just lyric that you wrote, like just to sound a certain way.
How do you feel? I've been having so many conversations lately about this. How do you feel personally about music? Like, do you feel you're ever at a shortage of finding music that you can like just love?
Yeah, all the time.
You do?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Do you do? Okay.
The older I get, I feel like I'm just like getting older, and you know, like old people, like people our parents' ages are always like, oh, like best music was in the '70s because that's what they grew up listening to. I already feel like I'm at that point where I'm like, oh, the stuff coming out now, like the best music was when I was growing up, and so I don't know. I do. I struggle with that.
I guess I've been talking to too many musicians because I feel like that's a feeling you get when you just have to create something. Like your body's telling you. There's a lack of something that you personally want to hear.
Yeah.
Not like there's so much good music out there, but I feel like when you're writing, your body's like, yeah, okay, but you still have to get this thing out. Like, do it because the thing you're looking for isn't quite at your fingertips yet. And you make it, but so many people, friends of mine who aren't musicians, are like, dude, I found like 40 different artists that I love this week. Because they're not looking to say something too, like to try to add something, like attempt to. They're just looking to like consume more music.
Right.
And I'm at a point where I'll find like a handful of artists and I'll just like hold them in my arms. I don't want to squeeze the orange and then like eventually the orange is rotted and gone. And I'm like, no. But I don't know. There's that thing going on where so much is I want to create something, and then when I'm done creating that and I feel good for a little bit, like then I appreciate music again.
Yeah.
And I really get into things and like it. But when I feel like I need to say something and I look for that thing in another source, like I don't find it.
Yeah. Well, there's good music, and then there's music that makes you feel, and there's music that makes like an impact. Like I remember hearing there's this rapper or hip hop guy, I should say, Brother Ali. And Brother Ali, he wrote a song years, I don't know, it's at least 10 years old, maybe 15 years old, called Uncle Sam Goddamn. And it's like a very like critical song on the state of like what America is. Like it's a very deconstructive piece, I should say. When I first listened to that song, I was like 17, I think, or 17 or 18. And I remember hearing it and like the words just hit me like a truck. I was like, whoa, like this is like excuse me, like I haven't heard another artist do this in a song. Like this is stuff I've maybe heard in like from a pundit or whatever, but like he's saying it with such passion, and like you could tell he meant it and he felt it, and like it wasn't just like throwing thoughts at a dartboard. Like these are things he had thought about. Like there was like an actual like thoughtful philosophical critique to it, you know. And once in a while you hear something like that, or something like a song about, I don't know, like there was this one song, this band As Cities Burn, what I listened to growing up, and they wrote a song called The Widow, and like this song was about the guy who wrote it about his dad walking out on his mom.
Damn.
Like when he was like a little kid. And it's so visceral, like the word. I got goosebumps just now. Like the song is just so powerful, like listening to like how he speaks through like those moments, and it makes you feel. You know what I mean? Like those are the kind of songs that I think are a lot more rare, to your point. Like if I just want to consume good music, it's like what are the top charts? Like what's the hottest indie band band right now? Like, what are my friends listening to? Like, that stuff's always there. Like, there's always a band doing that, but it takes like something to kind of break through the cultural noise to create like a Noah Gunderson, or I'm trying to think like I don't know, like someone like a Damian Rice, even like someone who's like creating like a very distinct feel, like emotional feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like David Bazan, like maybe it's theological or like whatever it might be. And like that, those artists are a lot more rare than just like good pop artists.
Yeah. While we're talking, I'm realizing something I guess I've done now for years, but just didn't even know. But I compartmentalize artists. So War on Drugs for me, the band. Mm-hmm. I think I only listen to them when I'm driving.
Interesting.
Like for 5 or 6 hours. Like they are my soundtrack.
Yeah.
If I am driving 5 hours and then you just got the beats is like
good beats.
I'm having a great old time. But I don't know if I'm going through a terrible loss, if that would be the band I'd listen to.
Right. They're not your go-to.
They're not my like I am coping with this miserable thing. I think the band Big Thief would be that band for me.
Yeah.
And so I guess every emotion or situation I have a band or an artist for it. Mm. So then I just, for my own life, I need to be that teller or the soundtrack writer for my life. And I guess that's part of the reason I write, because I feel like there are situations that there isn't a song for me yet.
So that's what you want to write for.
Yeah, almost. I guess that's what I want to do for myself as a service to myself, maybe. And a lot of times you attempt to do that and it gets nowhere close, and so you have to try again. You got to write another one.
Yeah.
And with my music, I make no money and I cannot sustain myself. But it's more like it's not. I'm not financially financially
sexual.
Yeah, financially successful. I'm like mentally successful with my music.
Right.
And that's, I guess that could be me explaining away my lack of anything with music. But it's like, if that's what I just need to mentally keep getting by, like, that is very good for me.
Yeah. Well, so relative, man. Like, what is I mean, it's all so relative. Like, you and I both know this. Like, you can compare people below you and above you.
Yeah,
it's like,
not worth it.
What radio platforms have you been on? Like how many albums have you sold? Like, whatever. Like, it's so dumb. It's just like, I don't know. But like with you, I mean, I know you just released Organ Donor, and like I know you've been
Aloha too. That song,
dude, one of your best of all time, literally. Like when you sent me that email with it, I was just like, listen, I sent it to like a couple of my buddies, and I was just like, this is like, it's so good.
Appreciate
it's such
it.
a great vibe.
Appreciate it.
But I mean, like with and this is from the record that you've been doing, right?
Yeah,
with DJ.
Yeah, with DJ, he's a great guy.
He's the best.
He is the best.
I mean, I don't really know him that well, but he's from the times I've seen him, he's the best.
Right.
He's literally everything.
Yeah.
But is there like a goal with it? Like, is it kind of falling in line with your thought process here? Like, just to kind of do it for yourself and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm something so many writers and musicians do is they write and they record and then like, so say they write 100 songs and they record 10 and then they release it one time. So it's like you spent 100 tries writing, 10 times recording, and then once releasing.
Yeah.
I've never been good at releasing anything. If it was up to me, I literally would just listen to it at home, and that was it.
Yeah.
But I have really good friends who are like, dude, just like release
let us hear it.
Yeah, just like let's hear it. And then they like at the end of the day, I always hit myself with like, what if some of my favorite songs, if the musicians were like, we're not releasing it.
Yeah.
And they were like, they meant something to me, and they still do. And so I'm like, all right, well, maybe this song makes someone feel good for 3 minutes. Great. Okay. So I want to get better at like. Not just throwing it up on Bandcamp, which was my way of doing that. I'd be like, see, I threw it up, and then maybe it's there, and that person can hear it and maybe be happy. And I'm like, no, Travis.
Yeah.
Like, you need to do a better job of potentially getting it to people, and maybe someone hears it that way. Because otherwise I'm being lazy. So I thought that by recording the songs all together and then releasing them separately, I would get better at releasing songs. Getting better at, like, how does one go about trying to share a song with people.
Right.
And I'm not good at it. I'm awful.
Well,
at
no,
it.
but even like sending that email you sent, it was very thoughtful. I mean, like you
thanks.
sent like you I could tell it wasn't like a copy paste.
No.
You know what I mean? I get those all the
Yeah.
time. Still, like after years of promoting shows, like local kids that just like send like this very clear, like they've sent this to 100 other people, like, hey, I just released a new song. Could you please give me some feedback? It'd mean a lot. And you're like, this, you didn't write this.
Yeah. No, I used to just give it to like my friends who I worked on the music with. I'd be like, hey, you recorded bass on this, here's the song.
Yeah.
But for these ones, I was like, who are people who legitimately have affected my life
Yeah.
in the musical realm? Like who are people that when you think of music, you literally think of and like, wow, that person's special.
Yeah.
And so you were on my list.
Oh,
Nathan.
man.
No, but
I'm blushing.
I wanted to send it to people who I thought were like I could write an email to and look in the face and be like, hey, you're important to me.
Right. It's not like some stranger that like
No.
you like kind of would like. Cause I feel like this sometimes. Like you kind of feel like a fraud when
Oh, yeah.
there's people that you know, but like it's almost like a consumer based relationship. Like maybe they come to your shows
Yeah.
and you like are nice to them, but you haven't like given them anything outside of that. So then when you ask things of them, it's like you can't be like, hope we hang soon or like I miss you because you don't really. You know what I mean?
I hate the dynamic so much. Like there are people in my life who they're really good.
Yeah.
And they're like touring all around. And I wish I could just write them that email that's like, dude or lady. I call dude guys
said
and
dude
girls.
everybody
To
too.
everyone, yeah. My lady hates me for it. She's like, don't call me dude anymore. And I'm like, without thinking, I'm like, okay, dude.
Call my wife dude.
It's great. So, but I wish I could just be open and write them an email like, and have it like it would be heartfelt, but without their response being like, what do you want?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you want from me? And it's like, I want to be able to write that email without them feeling like that. And I wish you could. There are
Yeah.
musicians too, like who I've never talked to. And I want to write her an email and be like, you make my everyday better.
Yeah.
But that kind of puts a responsibility on them. Like, what do they do with that?
Yeah.
Do they feel guilty or do they not care or what is it? So I don't write it. I never write that email.
Write the email, dude. Write it.
Should I write
I
to
think
Lana?
it means a lot to
Should
people.
I write to Lana?
Lana. I knew that's who you were thinking about.
I love her.
I started doing that. I mean, like, I agree. I get what you're saying because it's like, yeah, like what are they thinking when
Yeah.
they get it? But I think it's the positive outweighs the bad or the negative in that sense. I
You do?
think people, yeah, I think people. I went to the Steel. I think I was telling you, I went to the Steel Cities open mic the other night.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always a pleasure going there, and like it's great hearing the new talent and all that, and like I know as a performer that like when you perform somewhere, especially at like an open mic where it's very vulnerable and it's
Yeah.
like you don't really aren't that usually people that do them aren't that confident or maybe it's like a new thing or whatever. And this one girl went up and she was so good and you could tell she was probably like she was under 20, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
she was pretty young. And she got up there and like the person who went on after her was also like amazing. Like I won't say I actually liked this girl like authentically. I liked this girl more than the girl who went on after her. But
Yeah.
the girl who went on after controlled the room. Like she
Oh.
literally like you have people like shouting like yeah like you go girl like that type of thing. Like it was a very powerful like stage presence type of thing. And I thought to myself like I just really liked that girl's performance and. She definitely got followed up by someone who I know that if I were me, I'd be thinking, fuck.
Yeah,
Like great. Like I just got overshadowed by this person. So I just like I went up to her at one point in the night and I was just like, hey, like I loved your set. Like it's awesome. Like I'm gonna like what's your song? Like I'm gonna listen to it on Spotify on the way home. And she's like, oh, like it's this, whatever, blah, blah. And like that's all. That was the only part of the reaction. That was it. And like I feel like that like you can carry that into email in a way where it's like you're not asking for anything. It's just like, hey, I've done it to certain public figures I like, and they send very nice responses once in a while. Like maybe 1 out of 10 of them will be like, hey, thanks a lot. That means a lot, whatever. But just be like, hey, I appreciate that you wrote this article, or like I like the way you think about this, and it's cool. And I don't know. I think
I'll go for it. You know,
put
you
good
inspire me.
juju out there,
You inspire
dude.
me.
Yeah, just give it a shot.
I
It's easy to overthink it.
yeah, it is.
You know,
it is.
It is.
Writing emails is so hard because you're just depending on how long it takes in that 15 to an hour.
Yeah.
You can go through such a range of emotion.
Overthinking it, yeah.
And I just want to write it and be like, dude, I know you probably don't make much money, and you're probably like going through that depression of the dissonance between where you wanted to be and where you are, and it hurts.
Right.
I'm not gonna put that in the email, but just be like, keep making music, please.
Yeah.
And know that there are people who love what you do.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go for it.
Do it, man. It's, I
gonna
mean,
try
email, it's anything text-based. It sucks lacking that greater context, but I think it's worth it. It's like you're saying energy-wise, like you're saying, oh, they just give you a little bit of energy. Everything is energy, like bursts of energy. Like sometimes all you need is an email, like a nice email or a nice, once in a while I get a nice Twitter DM from someone who like follows me and like just likes what I post. And that's so weird because like my brain, I'm always like you, I'm thinking, I have a notepad on my laptop, which it probably has, at this point, I don't even know, well over 100,000, probably close to 200,000 words in it from years. And there's a few of them, but my one main one is where I just put thoughts throughout the day on it. And they're usually incomplete thoughts, like some wrong things in there, like just stuff that my mind changes over time, whatever. It's just in the moment I write it down. And my thought is always, I'm going to write this down here so I can tidy it up so I can post it on social media at some point, because it's just like a thought that I have. And 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, none of them ever make it onto social media.
Right.
Because I just get so like self-conscious about it. I'm just overthinking it. Like, oh, someone will take it this way. What if someone gets offended? Like, here.
Yeah.
But like, so that's like my battle every day. So like when I think about like what I post online, I'm like, oh God, like people are probably so annoyed by me, or like they're so just like over.
I love what you post.
Oh, well, thank you, dude. I love what you post. But like, it's just, it's just the idea that like we're in our own heads and we're thinking, and like if you hear one criticism, that's going to be louder than 10 compliments.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000
million.
compliments. So exactly. So every like little thing always means a lot from anybody. It's like it could be an email or a message or whatever. It's like that can go a long way.
And it's fun. Like, how many artists or performers do you listen to their stuff, but you've never bought their stuff?
Oh my God, so many.
And I just think of that, and I'm like, man,
it sucks.
Maybe I got to write these emails, because I'm like, I can't always afford to just buy everyone's album, and I know what I'm going to do with that album. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to listen to it once, and then I'm going to lean it against the wall, and it's going to just sit there. And that's $10 that I could have paid off some student debt.
Maybe $20 you're buying vinyl.
Yeah. Could have been for my student debt. And so, like, there's so many artists who just give up because they're not making the album sales, but it's like, I can't always buy your shit.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need to start writing the emails, and then I'll be...
Clear your conscience.
Clear it. Yeah. Just right off, and then I'll feel great.
Oh man, yeah, it's true. There's definitely a balance there. Everybody, it's like we live in this like everything's marketed now. Like the way like capitalism is in this phase. It's like literally. I was reading an article this week about a new water brand that is like it's canned water called Liquid Death.
Ooh.
And it's literally just water, and it's
but it's canned.
It's canned. I was talking to some guy who knows somebody that worked on it, and I was making fun of it. And this guy was saying that the idea behind it was like it's for bars, because like when people go to bars and they're like straight edge or whatever and they don't drink, this like is you can buy it and like not be like, oh, it kind of have a glass of water type of thing. But anyway, it was just funny to see it. It's like, oh wow, we're like marketing water. You know what I mean? It's like everything we do, it's like everyone's selling you something and wanting to buy something, like with music and any kind of art. It's like no one wants to pay for art. Like no one wants to pay for it. It's like I'd rather pay $7 for my Wawa hoagie than to pay $7 to buy your EP.
Dude, no, I tell people this. I used to think I loved music, and now friends will be like, yo, I have a show. It's $10. And I'll be like, nah, I can't go, man. Bro. And then, like, that night, I'll drop 100. Me and my lady will drop 100 eating food that I will then, like, get rid of in a day.
Exactly. But it's gone.
But to me, it's not like a $10 show. To me, it's... we'll be getting ready.
It's the energy.
It's the energy.
The time.
We'll drive there. We'll find parking. It'll be stressful. Yep. We'll go there. We'll hang out. We'll talk to a bunch of people, and then we'll watch the show. We'll hang out afterward. Usually there's like 3 acts, and then you leave, and you're like, I just spent 8 hours.
Yep.
And that's a lot of time. And you do get mentally nourished, but you don't get. And it's so. I guess the more musician friends you have, the more time that question gets asked you, and then eventually you're like, I think I like food more.
Yep.
Like, I love food. I will pay 100 for a meal, but not for a ticket.
Oh, it's so painfully accurate. I hate that. It's true though. It's true, and we all do it. Like everybody does it.
Yeah,
like
everyone does it.
Yeah,
even the person that you did that to, like they're gonna give you that later.
That's like, dude, I swear that's you just painted inadvertently the picture that I sell people, where I say hypocrisy is such a shallow criticism because we're all hypocrites. Like going back to the cognitive dissonance thing, it's like I could spend all day, and I have spent all day in years past, being the guy who's like, why would you spend like how about instead of spending that $10 on cigarettes or like a hoagie,
Yeah.
buy my album? Like, what's wrong with you people? Like, I've been that guy, but then I've also been the guy who's bought that hoagie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just, you can't, like pointing it out, I guess, is good to a degree, but it's not a crutch. Like we're all hypocrites, so it's like you can't. It's like calling someone a hypocrite is useless. It's like, what do you do with that thing? It's like, what comes after? It's like, to me, it's like the privilege conversation and like with identity politics and like between like race and gender and all this. It's like, I think it's fine to like use the word privilege in the context of like trying to explain how someone exists in a society.
Right.
But it's like, what do you do with it then? It's like on its own, just using it as like well, you're privileged. It's like, oh, well, you're a hypocrite. It's like, okay, well, what's next? Like, is that the extent of your remark or your thought process?
That layer, the superior.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like, my thought is always you got to take it to the next level, and it's just, I don't know. It's tough to do, I know, for everybody because we're so caught in our
Well,
bubble.
I got a show. It's $10. You want to?
What is it?
No, I don't know. I am working on like because
Are you doing like a release show?
Every song I do a release show for. Like every song.
Okay,
every
that's
song.
awesome.
And
That's awesome.
Ultimately, like I don't know, man. Like I said, people are always asking me, like, you know, as if it's an expectation that I should be like touring the country. If someone called me up and was like, "Yo, bro, let's go on a tour," I would love to do it. Like that is something I'm totally open to doing and would love to do. But I'm just not going to like define what I do by am I touring? Yeah. Am I making a lot of sales? Like, am I an influencer? Like, no one should be like me.
Yeah.
One of the first albums I ever did, there was a line, I don't even remember it, but it was just like, it's like at midnight, you know, when you're going to sleep and you think of it, like you review your day. You review the day, you review like what guilts you the past 20, 30 years of your life. And I'm just like, there are kids who I teach who like probably look up to me.
Yeah.
And like that horrifies me. Because that one of the reasons I never want to have a kid is like, one, the world you're bringing them into. Like once you make that decision, they don't make that decision.
Right.
I've heard a lot of my friends who are like severely depressed be like, I don't want to be in this world.
Yeah, it's like I didn't choose to be here.
I didn't choose to be here.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm thinking that, and then second off, I'm just like, it's a big decision to make. Is having this being that you're going to be responsible for like helping shape
forever.
And I'm like, I don't even want to inspire the kid at the Wawa. Like I don't want them to be like, those are cool shoes. Like, dude, I'm not happy with these shoes. Like, so much we do, and people expect we're happy with it, and that's why we deliberately did it. But so much we do isn't deliberate, and like we do it because we have to.
Yeah.
Or we wear this because we have to, and because it's all we could afford.
Right.
And I hate being even responsible for like you ordering food that you don't like,
right?
Because I chose the restaurant. So the idea of being an like all those things horrify me. Yeah,
I'm gonna like totally be a contrarian to that take for a minute, just because I think I get what you're saying to the degree of like the sort of like root issues of like the human experience in terms of like mental illness and poverty and like all these things that are kind of competing issues that plague certain people and their will to live and exist in society and all that, like barring all of that, barring and barring the strict like evils in the world, like people that are born like by no choice of their own as a psychopath, like people that are born with certain like evil tendencies and all that. It's like the evil exists in the world, poverty exists in the world, whatever. So all that on the table, I would say I like to tell people everything belongs, quote unquote, in the sense where I think you need people like you to like level the playing field. You know what I mean? Like I think there's it's cliche, yin yang, how do you want to frame it? But like I think there's some level of balance to any culture, any society, any community, any family where it's like you need one thing to counterbalance the other thing. Like going back to like the left-right political dynamic, it's like so much of what makes the left as like a progressive force powerful is having like the right being like their boogeyman, and vice versa. It's like the right needs the left to be this like dramatic, like overexerting force that's like ruining culture to be their like to be the thing that brings them back to their traditional roots, etc. So I think in terms of you're talking about being, like, you don't want to be a role model and all that. Like, I think you almost need people like that to counterbalance, like, the influencer culture and the fame culture and the culture of people that are being brought up like as they like all they want is this like attention. Basically, it's like attention currency. It's like, you know, like they're being brought up with clicks. It's like, you know, it's like I need attention on social media. I need attention from my peers. People need to watch me stream video games, or I need to be a professional sports player, whatever it might be. I think that's great. It's great to have, you know, professional role models, professional athletes, some inspirational speakers, whatever the hell. Like that all has its own place. But I think there's also a place for the more like cynical, the more nihilistic, the more realist, the more like just culturally critical people. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's something to be said about that. And it's also like, yeah, in a lot of cases, like say like I'm more of like a motivational, like, I don't know what you call it. Like my personality, I'm much more like energetic, and I'm like, yeah, like just do it. Like I'm like the Nike slogan in some ways. I don't try to be, because I feel like I'm a cultural critic as well. Like I'm very cynical, but like I'm also more like.
Wait, you just pointed at me when you said cynical.
Yeah, you're cynical. And we're both cynical. But like I'm also like more like uppity about my cynicism. But it's funny because like I could produce a child who could then be just like you. You know what I mean? I could produce a kid who's like or I could produce a kid who's like super conservative, whereas I'm like a little bit more left leaning. It's like you can't control the outcome, but I think in my opinion is good. The more good people have kids, the better. And it sucks because like as it's the opposite with society. It's like not that. It's almost the opposite. I shouldn't say that. Not that being rich makes you good, but like as like more people become like affluent and like thinking about these issues, like whatever, quote unquote more privileged people, they have less kids. You know what I mean? It's like that's like the whole trope historically. Like the more poor people have more children to like take care of their family and like and because of lack of like resources
to
like
work
birth
on my
control
farm for free.
Like literally. So it's like this weird thing where it's like the world kind of like churns on and like you're like that gap widens where like more people like us we decided to think like who needs kids? I'm not saying you should have kids, but you know what I'm saying. It's interesting to consider the sort of like the multiple lenses that we see these things through.
I mean, personally, I would love to have a little Jasmine, my lady's Jasmine. Like, I would love to have a little one of her. I'd call it, her middle name would be Jasmine, and her first name would be Lillian. So I could call her Little Jasmine.
Oh my God.
That would be her name. Like, I have it all planned out. I'm just not allowed to have kids. Like, I've been told by my lady, like, I'm not allowed to have kids, So that's over for me.
Put a nail in that.
Yeah, that's done. I'm like, okay. Well, she picks what I eat. Like, we'll go to the restaurant, dude. And like, well, it's more because she usually picks what she picks is usually awful. Yeah. And she knows it. Yeah. And she's like, I made a bad choice.
Right.
You picked a good one. So like, I'll order and she'll order. Full well, I order what I know she's willing to eat because we're going to both end up eating that. You know? Yeah. So. But I mean, she orders both things now. It's like she'll make both choices, and then
powerful Jasmine.
She is mighty. She is mighty.
I call my wife powerful Chelbe. Chelsea then Bay. She's like powerful Chelbe.
Dude, it's important that you have someone who like just punches you sometimes. Like not literally, not physically, but like
absolutely
who just like hits you and you're like, oh, you're right. I should wake up.
Yeah.
Or like you're right.
Yeah.
You need someone you can trust enough. And I know that can be daunting on a partner. They feel like don't give me that responsibility. But it's like I love it.
Yeah,
I love when someone's
if it's
willing.
a loving, powerful person. That's like such a slick combo in a human being.
Yeah. Like she can call me out, and I love it.
Yeah,
I love when she calls me out.
That.
Yeah,
I say it to my wife all the time. Like I hate it, but I love it. It's like I'm an egomaniac, like I said. So like with my viewpoints and all that, like I'm very staunch, and then when she like will make certain comments, I'm like, my knee-jerk reaction is to get defensive, but then afterward I'm always like, fuck, you're right. Like
you
totally.
have this third mic. I wish she was here because anytime I made a statement that was like douchey, she would just be like, you think you're fucking great. And she knows she knows I don't think that. Like she sees me in my low moments where I'm just like,
of course, but you need it sometimes.
Yeah, moping with my teddy bear dragging behind me, you know, like and a blanket in my other hand. But I love that's like she counterbalances me really well.
Yeah, it's good to have that balance. Yeah. I often think like I would get so bored if Chelsea, my wife, was my cheerleader. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
just
it'd be
like good
so
job.
Boring.
Wonderful thought. Like shakes the pom-poms.
It's like everybody wants what they can't have. You know what I mean? It's like the balance is good. But anyway, dude, we've been going for a while. I don't want to keep you.
No, dude, I don't. Yeah. What? Holy shit! Oh my god.
Yeah, we've been going ham.
I hope this is going to be like a 10-part series. And
Just release it throughout the year.
Yeah.
Like give people little tastes.
This could be our Game of Thrones.
That it's gonna end. It ends just as
Just
bad.
awfully.
Oh my god.
Well, thank you, Nathan, for having me. This has been...
it's my pleasure, man.
I love it.
Absolutely. Do you want me to? Is there any anywhere you want to send people, like Spotify or your website?
That's a fucking great question.
Bandcamp.
Well, WilliamHTravis.bandcamp.com is the music, or Spotify, William H. Travis. Facebook, you can go on, but don't like me. I take pleasure in having 0 likes. Twitter, I am occasionally just tweeting a line from a lyric. Like I'll log on. I don't even know my password. I just click on. It's on one computer. I'll click on. I'll just type a lyric I've been liking, and I'll just press tweet.
Wow.
But I think I'm going to be more active.
You should. I'm on Twitter. I'll lift you up. I'll bring you into all the most toxic circles of political discourse. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
It'll be terrible and great.
Thank you.
So, all right, man.